Planning Board for Thursday, March 14th, 2024, at Wenham Town Hall. We're all here in person, including Mr. David Anderson, who's coming in. We are also on Zoom. The Zoom link is posted at the agenda, which is online. And I think we are being broadcast on HWCam tonight, which is great. So I'll just turn it over to you, Margaret. Oh, in attendance, me, Ann Weeks, co-chair or vice chair. Vice always sounds evil somehow. Dan Pasquarello, Peter Clay, Rick Woodland, and Mr. David Anderson, as before said. So I'll turn it over to Margaret. It's going to be a long meeting, so I'm going to inject humor where I can.
That's wonderful. The first item just is Jen Goldson is here to do the presentation for the master plan.
Fabulous.
That's going to be the big part of the evening.
I'm just getting on Zoom, so.
Okay,
The host
that's
has
great.
joined, and I think
All right,
I'm in the waiting room.
let me toss you in.
And your mic is on, right? We can hear you.
Yeah.
Do we want to take anything out of order or no?
What's your suggestion?
I see Mr. Griffin in the audience. And I
How
don't
long,
know.
how long will your presentation be?
How long would you like it to be?
Mine is.
We have these survival bags here.
I did 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I'm fine with that. I left my glasses in the car anyway, so
Oh,
it'd be a
perfect.
good chance to go out
So
and get
why
them.
don't we, yeah, that's a great
I was
idea.
gonna try to
So
struggle
why
through.
don't we put you in front? If you're ready for that, this is the administrative matter on just providing information on the 47 Maple Street. It's a preliminary subdivision to discuss a petition on behalf of North Shore Property Group for approval of a plan for land located at 47 Maple Street. There's not a public hearing. It's an preliminary subdivision presentation, so we are happy to hear what you have to say. And
Bob, is that a plan that I have, or is that something new?
Some of it's new and some of it you have.
Only because I should have it up on the screen. You didn't send it to me?
I did not.
all right, I don't know how we're gonna do this.
I don't
HW Cam, can we just ask anyone who's on Zoom and has an interest in this, can you tell us how they find, just go to HW Cam and
We're on YouTube.
On
And
YouTube.
HWCam, on cable.
on YouTube and HW Cam on cable, and you'll be able to see the plans. So I think, I don't know, I'm gonna ask the person running the presentation where it should be. Yeah? Does that work? Okay, great. Will you please just give us your name, although we know it, and, and for the record, of course.
With me is Mike Bonfiglio, principal of North Shore Property Ventures. We filed this plan with you in July. It's 4.5 acres of land here off of Maple Street, 47 Maple Street is the residence here, and most of the back.
Would you mind speaking into the microphone so the folks can hear at home? Sorry.
And most of the backland is agricultural. So the plan was pretty simply just to bring in a small 280-foot subdivision with 3 new houses, maintaining the existing house at 47 Maple Street. These lots all meet the residential requirements, so there's no zoning relief required. There was some minor waivers with the subdivision road. The subdivision road, you can see, had this sort of landscaped island in the middle, which wasn't exactly how the subdivision regulations are laid out, but given the small size of the project, it seemed to make sense. And there was a small waiver regarding the size of the shoulder. We had a 4-foot shoulder instead of an 8-foot shoulder, but a pretty straightforward subdivision. The neighbor, Mr. Streeter, was listening at the time, and he said, geez, I'm concerned about the proximity of the proposed roadway to my property here, and would you consider pushing it further away? So we said, yes, we would consider moving it further away, and I'm just going to show you the aerial so you can see the layout. as was presented back in July. There's the house,
Right.
3 houses in the agriculture area. So we did that, and at about the same time, unfortunately, Mr. Piper passed away, and I believe Mr. Streeter's mother passed away, and so there's been
Right.
some changes in the ownership of the land, and so Mr. Bonfiglio and his attorneys have been dealing with the new people that are involved, and and he's had a number of conversations with Mr. Streeter in particular. And so the idea that we filed in October was to move the roadway over, and the roadway would essentially occupy the location of the existing 47 Maple Street house. You still end up with 4 houses, just a slightly different layout. We had the same waivers on the subdivision road.
I
Yes.
just realized I'm close to this.
These are nine, aren't you nine?
I'm sorry?
No, I'm 26 Maple.
We have an abutter on our, I don't think it matters for this.
So
Yeah, there,
I'll just show you the assessor's map so you can get a good feel for
Oh,
where
no.
we're located here.
I'm at the corner of Puritan Road.
So you're up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't think that's a problem. And so this is our parcel here, the Typer parcel, and the Streeters have this parcel here and this parcel here. This is about an 18-acre parcel, and this is about a 121-acre parcel. And I know they're going through the process of surveying and wetland flagging and all that on their property right now. So one of the ideas that came up with Mr. Bonfiglio and Mr. Streeter was to possibly modify the Typert subdivision to incorporate a small portion of their land, of the Streeter land. You can see that there's this narrow strip right next to the Typert property. It provides access to this agricultural area here. A lot of this land, this wooded land here is wetlands and floodplain, so it's not necessarily, it wouldn't be easy to develop in any event. So at their request, we came up with a plan bringing a 500-foot long subdivision instead of a 280 or 300-foot long subdivision plan, a little further back onto the property. And instead of 3 new houses, you get 6 new houses. This is all subject to wetland flagging and some more survey work that is ongoing, and we've been waiting to finalize this plan based on those results, but they're
And-
just not finished yet.
And can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you indicate on here where the old property boundary was and where the new boundary, where,
Yeah.
are you just taking that one little flag strip?
So the Typert land is this box here,
Uh-huh,
and the Streeter land is this about 65-foot long strip here, and then it goes off, and there's 18 acres back there. We don't need all those 18 acres, so
right.
all that wetlands doesn't really help us any. So we haven't really figured out, where that property line would be drawn. We would need to have enough land to show that we have 2 hammerhead lots with this particular layout, because Lot 4 and Lot 5 don't have enough frontage. They don't have the 170 feet frontage that's required in this district. But I think we can get 120,000 square feet of land without a whole lot of trouble for those 2 lots to make those 2 lots work.
And I'm just thinking about the other Streeter property, because you've effectively taken the access to the road unless they reconfigure those 2 lots.
He's got a lot of frontage here and a lot of.
I know, but that, but not for that flag lot.
Right, and so it turns out that, it wouldn't be that easy to develop this lot because he'd be more than 500 feet long in that strip anyways.
Still don't think you can take the access away without him combining the other lots, but anyway, that's,
There would be an A&R plan to take the relevant portion of the Streeter land and combine it with the Typer land. That would have to happen, or at least part of the subdivision plan would be that.
okay, but
combining
you
of
haven't
those
got
two.
that far yet.
Right. So, and just to look at the aerial, again, so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So anyways, that's what me and Mr. Bonfiglio have been working on, and that's why there's been some delays in getting these plans finalized, and why we've asked for the delays in the preliminary plan consideration.
Great, thank you for keeping us up to date.
My pleasure.
Does anyone on the board have a question?
I have 2 questions. So for lots 5, this is premature, but for lots 4 and 5, are you gonna be able to have sufficient frontage on a subdivision road?
Not as shown. So we need to have 170 feet of frontage in this district, but we can have a smaller amount of frontage if we have, I think, 120,000 square feet of area.
Oh, see, okay, so you're still negotiating.
Negotiating that.
That's
No.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
But to
So-
make this particular layout work, we would need to have we need a special permit, I think, for the hammerhead lots. And if we didn't have that, then we would probably have one house back here instead of two.
So my other question is, what are you asking for tonight? Are you asking for a continuance?
We would like to continue, yes.
Okay.
And Margaret asked us to come in and update the board as far as, because these,
Yeah, it's really helpful, actually.
Right. I saw something about whether it might make sense to withdraw without prejudice and then resubmit, or is that not an option? Or-
Well, it had been going on so long, I felt that it might be a better option for the board if they, just come back when they're ready.
I mean, any idea how
doesn't
long
make-
your negotiation process is gonna take?
we're hoping that it's gonna be, it's been a few more weeks, but it keeps being a few more weeks. So we're not really sure, but we're hoping that it'll happen quickly.
Well, the board technically has, I think, 120 days or something to approve a preliminary subdivision, but with the,
Continued for
yeah,
quite
the
a long time. 'Cause it was-
continuations from the applicant,
Was it September when you first made the application?
It was end of July.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
so,
it's been a long time.
Mr. Woodland, you had a question?
My question is more of a comment but it is kind of a question. There is an existing driveway, just so the board knows, just to the left of the Tybert property, which is in part of the land that's under conservation. But I don't know before I go much further, I'd want to know what the plans are from Mr. Streeter to access that back property.
Mhm.
Is he just going to leave it in perpetuity, or is he going to try to combine it with property that's already under conservation restriction, or, no, it's under
Chapter.
chapter land?
Chapter
So,
land.
because that's going to affect, I think, how we look at this when you finally get to that point.
I know that he's engaged a team of engineers and biologists to study that land and try to figure out what makes sense with it, but I don't know what the answer to your question is, but I'll
But
try to find out.
it's not, I'm just trying to advise you that
Yeah.
that might be very helpful for the board here to understand, so we're not making it in a vacuum.
Right. So in regards to the question about, should we continue or not, I don't really see the harm in continuing. I'd rather do that than withdraw at this point.
People's
What's the
thoughts?
difference? Are we talking about an application fee or something like that?
Probably.
I mean,
Yeah,
could we waive it?
you can waive a fee if you'd like, yeah.
Would that make a difference? If you withdrew without prejudice and we'd waive the fee for
I
reapplying?
just ask your consideration to at least give us another month to try to wrap this up. And again, I don't see any harm to the town by continuing the matter, so we would just as soon keep it
Well,
open.
it seems like it's just a
It's
completely
new
different
project.
plan than what was
Well, I would
originally
agree.
submitted.
If the project does expand to the street of land, then it would probably be a new application. But at this point, we don't have that deal completed.
Okay.
I would just ask that we get everything at least 10 days before the meeting, before the planning board meeting.
Fair enough.
So they have it to give them, and they can have some time to look at it.
Okay.
Right, and maybe let's just say that if you're not ready at the next meeting, then we'll talk again about just, and you think you're going this route,
We're hoping to.
then let's talk again about whether we want to just say, bring in a new application and waive the fee.
Great, okay.
Okay?
Yeah, so April 1st, do you think you can get it to me by that?
All right.
Okay.
That's 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, it's 10 days before the next meeting, so,
We'll do the best we can.
all right? Anything else from anyone? Anyone online have anything they want to add to this, or? Doesn't look like it. So we'll say thank you very much for keeping us up to date with what's going on out there.
Bob, could you
It's
also
an
send
important
me,
corner, so
Good
we're
try.
always, we're interested.
could you send me another request to continue
Yep.
this? Thank you.
Right.
Access road I spoke of is, that's 17th century road. Has
Is it the flag lot piece? Is it the piece that I was pointing out?
It's a little road right next to the Tybert property, just to the left of it. It butts right up to it.
Left, if I'm on
Look,
the
if you're
property?
facing the property, yes, on the left.
On the left, okay,
And that's
on
a
the left.
17th
yeah.
century road.
And would you mind if I just ask Miranda to let me know if this is working and she can hear us?
No, go right ahead.
Miranda, can you hear us?
like it.
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay, great. I wanted to make sure we could hear you also. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And is she here for,
She's
bond?
here for the Wenham Pines request for
bond?
bond
Yeah.
release.
okay. Do we want to take that up front as well?
It should be pretty
I
quick.
think it
Might
would be
make sense.
helpful, because, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that should be pretty quick.
So we're going to switch the agenda again and have a conversation about Wenham Pines' request for bond release. It sounds like everything's complete out there, and they would like to release the bond that's held on the infrastructure, and it looks like Attorney Samasco is online. Do you have a presentation you want to make?
Very briefly, I'm not sure whether Tony Tamboni is in the chamber or not, but we wanted
He's
to
not.
be here to follow up on the request that was submitted through Margaret to formally start the process to close out the special permit and the performance bond that the town holds for the completion of the infrastructure. We have submitted as-built plans, and we understand through Margaret that the next step is for the board, probably in conjunction with the Conservation Commission, to engage peer reviewers to start the process of reviewing the completion of the infrastructure. And so we don't anticipate any formal presentation this evening, but wanted to be available in case any of members of the board had questions.
Any questions from members of the board?
Nope.
And we're ready to start the peer review process?
Yes, yeah. One of the issues we had was the peer reviewer who did this originally was DCI Engineering, and they've gone out of business. They were purchased by another engineering firm, so I did get in touch with them today. GM2 or some, I forget the name, I'm sorry. But I'm going to work with them to get them to go out and do the peer review for Planning Board and for the Conservation Commission, because they've also applied for a certificate of compliance on their order of conditions. So we're going to get that process started, and I did talk to the engineers today and said we would like to have that by our next Planning Board meeting. So we should have something by then, but I'll keep everyone posted.
Terrific. Thank you for letting us know.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Which now brings us to
Jen.
Jen and her presentation on the Wenham Master Plan, which is really exciting.
Okay.
Okay. So I think I can share my screen here.
Yep. I think I just gave you permission.
And
Oh,
there's your-
thank you. All right. All right, well, thank you, everyone. It's nice to be here. This is my last meeting in Wenham.
Are you moving? Sorry.
Jen, I'm sorry, do you have your, are you recording or typing this out? Is that something?
Oh, we have our PowerPoints set on closed caption just for accessibility.
Oh, okay.
I have it automatically doing it
That's awesome.
on all my PowerPoints. Yeah, it's not always correct, so sometimes I say something and it doesn't quite get it, but
AI,
We'll
what
be
can you
careful.
say?
yeah, exactly.
Move,
Oh, I can move this over.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just make this a little bigger.
So I tried to keep this as short as I could to respect your time, but it is, a lot to go over. So I'll do my best to move through it quickly, but, as with other presentations we've done, feel free just to stop me or interrupt at any time if you have questions.
I have one preliminary question, and it's obvious from this page, so if you don't mind if I ask it. The ink is purple. Is that intentional, or is it because it's a draft?
We can change it if you don't think it's
I
easy
had
to read.
difficulty
Yeah.
when I printed it out, actually reading some of it on some
Yeah.
of the backgrounds. So
Sure.
I just
We'd be
wanna-
happy to darken that up.
Dumb thing to say right up front, but
That's okay. It made you remember because the purple is
before
showing
I
up here.
forget, I need
Yeah.
to say it. Okay.
No, we're
thank
happy
you.
to do that. We're happy to make the text black so it's easier to read.
Yeah, and I'm, not lobbying for any particular color, just one that's easy to read.
Were you talking about the text right there?
I'm talking about the text when you print it out and you try to read it.
Yeah, and if we just change the color to black, I think that will solve that problem.
The master plan? Brenda's gonna have a conniption. These are Wenham's town colors.
Well, maybe we
Might
could
be able to
leave
read it.
headings. Maybe we could leave the headings purple because they're bigger and bolder. But I think the text, like you're seeing, the names here,
Yeah,
are
I mean-
thinner and probably harder to read.
Use your good judgment.
Since Anne opened up format questions, can I ask?
Sure.
Sorry.
I just saw the printout. It looks like it's 6 or 7 point font.
Would you like it to be bigger font?
Well,
It won't fit.
I know it won't, I know it looks like it won't fit. It's hard to read.
Okay, fair enough. That's important. Reading is important.
I just wasn't sure if the purple was because it's a draft and it's
No.
in that draft font and you're gonna change it, or.
No, this
Just
is-
would use your
this is it.
judgment on how to make it easy to read. I think
Yeah,
that's-
that sounds good. And I think, we can look also at using maybe even a thicker font so that it's easier to read rather than a super thin font. And then we can look at making the font bigger. It'll make it a little longer, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think we want people to be able to read. The people who are gonna read
Yep.
a hard copy,
Yeah.
I guess.
Right.
Okay, good. So first, before I start, I just wanted to acknowledge the Master Plan Advisory Committee and town staff who put a lot of sweat equity time, so many meetings. I should have counted them up for you, and I didn't, but I could certainly do that if you're curious. And just so much support. Margaret and Kate have been terrific behind the scenes, gathering things, helping with the engagement, getting the word out there, and all sorts of things that I probably don't even know they were doing to keep the ball moving and keep the meetings get noticed and all of the things that you do on a normal basis. So I just want to say thank you. We do view all of our work as collaborative, and it's very nice when we have a team like Margaret and Kate to work with. And the Master Plan Committee, the Master Plan Advisory Committee really put in a tremendous effort. I think David can attest to that. I think you've been at almost every meeting, and they just have such great discussions, really thoughtful, and make, I think, lovely decisions together as well. When very respectful. When a member brings up something that maybe we talked about months ago, and they said, you know what, I've been rethinking this. I want to change the way we're saying this. People are very open to it, and they almost always were able to come to some consensus without a lot of facilitation on our part. And that's not always the case. So I just wanted to commend the committee. And I know their work's not quite done, but I thought since this was my last public appearance with you all, that I'd take that time to acknowledge them.
Yeah, and I just, while we're at it, am really grateful to the members of this board who pitched in over the course of the 2-year period to engage with the committee and do the work that needed to be done, so.
Yeah, it was a nice collaboration with the planning board members, kind of swapping in and out, and I think it all worked really well in that regard. And I hope you all felt like you were always up to date as well, and kind of knew what was happening. That was our intention. So I wanted to just start with the process, which you all have been involved with really throughout. We started with the phase 1, which is just understanding the community. Then in phase 2, we were really looking to engage as many community members as possible to understand where they want to see the community go in the next 10 years. What do they want to see stay the same? What do they want to see changed? What are some issues that they think this master plan can help them address? And then we went into how do you achieve that? So now we understand kind of the vision and the goals. And I'll talk about all these in a moment in more detail. But just in terms of the process, how do you do this? What are some best practices? What are some trade-offs? And then we went into the last few months where we've basically been pulling this document together. And you can see on the left, the total participation points that we've counted is just under 800, which I think is very respectable for a small community. It's not easy to get people out, and people came out for this. And you can see that, different mechanisms had a different percentage of that, let's just call it 800, 796. So the survey brought in the most responses at 40% of your 800 was from the survey. And then about 23% was from the crowd map. So just for the future, if you're doing engagement, I think digital engagement works really well in Wenham. So you should keep that in mind. It's always nice to have the in-person stuff too for community building and actually seeing people, having discussions. But I think you did very well with your digital engagement. And then the meeting in a box format, I think, also worked. About 21% of your responses came from the meeting in a box, where you had small meetings all over the community, and a lot of you, probably all of you, held some of them. There were several held at the library as well that were just publicly advertised, and then a lot of more private ones, just people picking up the meeting in a box and holding a small meeting on their own. That kind of decentralized engagement also can work well. So just things to keep in mind. And it's not hard to make a meeting kit for whatever topic you want people to get interested in. The outreach is the tough part, as Margaret knows. That's the, getting the word out and really getting out there. But I think those are probably your most successful ways to engage your community, at least at this point in time. So just in terms of the layout, I'm not going to go page by page, so don't worry. But just in terms of how the whole thing is laid out. So we have a bit of an introduction, just, what is this? Why are you doing it? We also will have a letter from you that I think I don't know if we have it.
I don't have it yet, but I'll
Okay.
get that to you, man. We have a template.
Okay,
for it.
perfect. Yeah. So there's just a placeholder right now for that letter. And then we talked about what Wenham in context really is about the existing conditions. It's kind of what is the context, what's going on here, what are some of the trends, and then we talked more about the planning process in a bit more detail than I just gave you. And then we start off in terms of the policy section. So I would say the policy sections are basically 4 through 11 are all your policies. We start out with the vision map, because that kind of pulls everything together. And we have a few zoom in areas of the map too. So it goes on for a few pages, and then an annotated legend that kind of talks about, it essentially is giving you a foreshadowing of some of the strategies that you'll read as you read through the rest of the plan. So we start with that, and then we go into how it's organized. We have this vision statement, and then we have the core themes, the goals, and then the strategies. And so the plan framework is just talking about those elements. And then we also have metrics kind of scattered throughout to help you measure your progress. And then we go into the vision statement, and then there are 5 core themes. And then the last chapter, chapter 12, is the implementation, just suggestions, and I'm happy to talk more about that when we kind of get towards the end of this. So just to give you a little snapshot, the Wenham in context goes through essentially the statutory elements of a more traditional master plan. We just tried to jazz up the names a little bit, make them a little bit more accessible. So we talk about live, work, getting around, preserve, connect. But essentially, we're talking about, housing and demographics and economic development and transportation, et cetera. So you can see how that goes. And then we, I don't have a lot of slides on the engagement piece, because I know you've seen several presentations about it already, but I thought this little diagram that we created, this map, really just gives you a nice snapshot of what we heard in the community. So there's a need for, the blue is showing you there's a need for greater diversity of housing, affordability, and types. And then the yellow is showing you the need to protect and preserve open space and balancing future development with that priority of protecting open space. And then the purple is talking about mixed use developments, mixing residential and commercial uses. And then the green is talking about transportation, including bike lanes and sidewalks and things like that.
I have a question about this one, because
Yeah.
it came up when I was looking at it. So you've got a blue box, and you've got arrows coming from the blue box. Are those intended to indicate particular parcels?
Yeah, they are pointing to, in general, some particular parcels. So I think the one is pointing to Gordon College. I think, is the one in the middle, the Iron Rail?
Iron
Yeah.
Rail?
And then Town Center area. Or,
Okay, because I can imagine getting a question about that and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to know, specifically what you were thinking about
Yeah.
when you were drawing this. Yeah.
yeah, that is intentional.
Similar question?
Mhm.
Is yellow is for open space that we want to protect? Is that or needs not
Yeah.
yet preserved or something? Is
I
that-
think so. I'd have to look carefully at where we're exactly pointing, because I don't know those properties off the top of my head. You guys might, but that is supposed to be the intention.
Okay, I noticed in the plan that I think the only thing listed in that category was Wenham Country Club, and it's.
And here we
it's
have like
not-
4
I don't
things.
think it's identified on that.
Yeah, it's not there.
I don't think it's
It's open space, but it's not
protected.
protected,
Right.
which I think is what yellow means.
Well, I
Or maybe
think,
not.
I think it's parcels of interest, right? So the farm up off 97, and I'm wondering it seems to me, I can't tell exactly what the second yellow ray is pointing at. It's not
Near
Streeter.
the
No,
cluster
it's
of.
the Burnett, the
oh.
back of the
It's the
Burnett
back
property.
of Burnett.
Yeah, Maple
Are you
Woods.
working from the left?
I am,
Okay.
yes. So Angelini, then Burnett, but not Streeter, which,
Streeter gets
okay.
a purple arrow.
yeah. Which is okay, that's fine. And then I'm not sure,
I think that's the West Wenham Playground
it's the playground, right? And the Audubon.
in Audubon.
And then Pingree Park, and then I guess Tender Crop /
No, that's not tender crop.
oh
That's
no,
on
it's the wrong side,
That's
yeah.
on the wrong side of the lake.
I
Where
guess
those-
that's.
Where those 3 circles are just above it, that is some conservation land that's
That's
under
Cedar Pond.
protection, but
That's-
it's not.
Cedar, yeah.
Yeah, that's, it, and that's Wenham Lake, so whatever that connection
So
is.
I'm making a note to check on where are these exactly pointing to and why are we pointing there. So let's
Yeah.
just look at that, because this is a graphic in the document.
Yeah, so
Right.
the two, you mentioned tender crop and I mentioned the golf course.
Right.
Which are on the other side of the lake.
And not identified,
Right.
which, I mean, that's the thing,
They
is once you
probably-
start identifying one property, you probably need to identify all of them, so.
Well, I don't know if you need all of them, but
But the major
you
ones.
need the major ones.
The major
Yeah, and it could be that the way we're describing this, so I think this is pulled from the crowd map answers that the community members gave us, but it could be that the way we're describing them, like maybe that yellow box, the text is wrong and not so much what she's pointing to. So I'm going to try to get to the source of that and try to figure that out.
Might be from here. No, it's this little thing, but there's a larger version.
Yeah,
in
there's
here.
like,
It's in here.
no, see,
Yeah.
protection opportunity, so.
It's just, one can imagine getting the question of how come the area that I'm most interested in doesn't have a yellow arrow, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to just check into why we're pointing at certain places, but I do believe it's the crowd map results.
So Jen, I was referring to, it's page 24 of your plan.
Yep.
Of the smaller version, the PowerPointy version, not the big version.
Is there a difference?
Yeah, this is the main document
Oh,
with all
okay.
of that, and this is
I was
the
looking at your PowerPoint.
presentation.
On 24 of your PowerPoint, you have color-coded boxes.
For the land use map, yeah.
And I just note, so under your category, open space protection opportunities, you
Yep.
had a separate bullet point for Wenham Country Club, and that's why I thought
Yeah, so this map, yeah,
it's different.
that map is hopefully correct. This
map-
one is based on public comments,
Okay.
and people coded their comment as either an open space comment or a housing comment. And I think that we need to look more carefully at what we're saying in that yellow box,
Yeah,
because
just explain what this is.
yeah, my guess is that we're not explaining what those yellow areas are actually intended.
I think your header needs to be explained a little bit more, what the community, and keep reiterating, this is what you folks said in aggregate, right?
Yes.
As opposed to in, yes.
Yes, it's what people said in aggregate.
The raw data.
This is the raw data, except the boxes are our interpretation of what they said. So I think that's the piece that we need to look at.
It's the local
Yeah,
connections, because that's what the people are gonna ask.
right.
But
Right.
here's the large,
Okay, I'm going to move on, but I do have a note to just look at how we're describing this and make sure it
Yeah.
makes sense what we're pointing to. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So as part, I know you have been involved in this fiscal impact analysis. So there was a very special part of the comprehensive plan that's not typically in a comprehensive plan, where we had Cambridge Econometrics do this side study. And then they did actually a bit more work even than the original scope. And I think you've probably all seen those reports,
This
right?
is really super helpful.
Good, good. And so we just basically summarized it in, there's a 2-page spread in the document that says these are some of the main takeaways. But of course, there's a whole separate report that is much more detailed than this.
Right.
And so do you want me to go through these at all, or should I keep going? I just want to be mindful of your time, and
I don't know if people are watching at home and maybe want
yeah.
just a really quick.
So we looked
this
at-
one, it's just such an important point.
There's only one person.
Well, that's on Zoom,
that's-
though. That's not
Zoom.
HW Cam.
You're right.
That's
Sorry.
true.
I mean, I don't
So
know.
the fiscal impact analysis, they really looked at how much development would it take to move the needle on your tax revenue, and by how much. And so they wanted to kind of give you some benchmarks so that when you're talking about increasing non-residential tax base, for example, and you're talking about certain development projects that may or may not come down the pike or that you might want to encourage, this report shows you, well, how much would actually affect your tax revenue and in what degree. And so they looked at fiscal impacts, they looked at your costs associated with development. So, of course, you have school, fire, safety costs in different levels for different types of development. So housing, especially single-family housing that typically will attract families, perhaps with children, will have a bigger effect on your school costs than a research lab, for example. And so there are different costs. And then what they did is they looked at, well, what would the net revenue be? What would the total revenue be? What would the assessed value be? And how much square footage would you need to hit that benchmark? So that if you were looking at, increasing, correct me, I'm not sure if I'm going to get the detail on this right. I believe it's 5% of your total tax revenue, right? So if you were looking at increasing your total tax revenue intake by 5% through a new development, you would need something in the neighborhood of 575,000 or 735,000 square feet of new development to move the needle by that 5%. And then they also looked at 10%. And this is not a recommendation. It's just simply an exercise to try to understand how much development would you need to generate net revenues of $1 million. And you'd need that 575 to 735,000.
And I think that's square feet of commercial space or
square
office, right?
feet
It's
of
not
commercial or
residential.
office. Yeah, that's right. So that's kind of the main takeaway. That
The
it's
remarkable thing from the body is that 575 is larger than, I guess, the North Beverly Plaza that has Shaw's in it.
I believe that's right.
That's what.
Yeah,
That's the
in the
comparison.
report. Yeah.
It's 3 times as big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to have those kind of scenarios. I'm sure you may have them in your.
They're in
It's
the
in the
report.
I didn't
Yeah.
read the whole report yet, and
in there,
because
yeah.
that's what people are going to say. What does it look like, right?
Right. It
Yeah.
looks like 3 times as big as.
North Beverly Plaza.
Do you have the slide, Jen, that has a little bit more of the detail, the financial detail?
I have this one.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is really super helpful.
Yeah. So if you look at the research lab was the most kind of positive benefit in terms of tax revenue.
And I understand there are only 2 towns that have built, 2 towns without a central wastewater treatment plant. that have built that big of commercial space. One of them's Ipswich, and the other one I think is Sherborne or somewhere out in Sudbury. So very few towns have built 250,000, 500,000 square feet of commercial space without infrastructure to support it, not on septic. So even that scale is kind of limited because of our environment.
Dave, this may be a question for you, because I know you were involved in this. Does this, I assume residential means sort of just traditional residential analysis?
This residential in this context means single-family, 1 acre development, traditional Wenham.
Okay.
What's truly amazing about what Jen has shown on these last 2 pages and the 2-page spread in the draft master plan is that she and her team have distilled down a 29-page report
It's
to 2
Yeah,
pages.
it's really helpful.
So there is, in the plan, in the report, there's high-density age-restricted, there's high-density non-age restricted, there's mixed use, there's single-family, right? So there's all the different flavors in there, if
So
people want
that-
that detail.
Yeah, so that was what I was gonna ask you, because we
Maybe confronted with
just
this.
had a
Yeah.
presentation at one of our last meetings, right, where an applicant was making representations about what sort of revenue it would be. Residential, but it's a different category of residential than
Correct.
what's on this, okay.
But it is in the,
It's in the full report.
it's in the full report.
Okay.
And Jen, by the way, maybe development scenarios summary, like maybe there's a sub thing, like see report for
Yeah,
all
footnote or,
scenarios or whatever, or for more scenarios.
right. There are other scenarios analyzed at,
Have a
Link.
link available, yeah.
So we're not gonna do a link, because links break over time, links are not
That's-
forever.
I wasn't going to bother saying that today, but
So how are we gonna get people directed to this?
we'll have a,
Your thunder.
so my recommendation is to have a landing page on your website that's all about the master plan, that will have
All
the
the
master plan itself, the fiscal impact report, the implementation matrix.
There will be a link
everything.
of some sort.
Yeah,
to
but
go
we
from
can
one-
cross-reference and say in a separate document, and that's a good idea.
And the all
And I'm
dates
also
reused for
thinking, since this question came up, we should also just clarify right on this graphic that residential means single-family, 1 acre
Yes.
lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
right, and that, maybe with a little star, other scenarios, including, and list them, are found at,
Yeah,
site to report, whatever.
okay. Okay, great ideas. All right, so now we'll get into the other pieces of the master plan. And so we worked a lot on the words, like every single word of this vision statement, and I think you've probably seen it several times by now. Would it be helpful for me to read, or do you want me to just keep going?
I think you can keep going,
Okay.
personally.
Yeah.
That's fine with me. I'm just kind of testing you
Yeah.
guys to
No,
see
no,
what
no,
you want.
I think you
Okay.
can keep going on that one, because I think we do all know the vision
Yeah.
statement.
I pulled out throughout the document, and this was actually, I believe it was Joanne's idea to kind of quote members of the community throughout the document, what they said. I thought it was a great idea. So I just pulled out some of the quotes that are in the document. It was really important for us and for the committee to make that direct tie to what community members were saying, and then where we landed. So in core theme 1, you'll also notice that they're color coded. So core theme 1 is yellow, and I forget the other colors, but you'll see them in a little bit. And so core theme 1 is all about fiscally and sustainably balanced economic growth. And this is the description of core theme 1, the vision of, so the way the way I think about the vision is you have that overall statement that I showed you on the last slide. And then each core theme has its own little vision that basically explains what we mean by this core theme. And then we also have these metrics that we would recommend the implementation committee really start to track right away and establish a baseline. Now, they don't necessarily need to track every single metric we list in the entire document, but we gave a bunch of examples of things that could show you if the strategies you're adopting over time are moving the needle. And these are just, examples. They could also think of other metrics. But one of their first jobs will be to establish the baseline and then start to track how they're either increasing or reducing these various metrics. So those are offered for every core theme. The second core theme is excellent municipal infrastructure and services. And again, we have metrics here. Now, all of these also have goals and strategies. You'll notice I'm skipping over those to try to get to just the core elements. But there's a lot more detail in the plan to review as well. And then we have work to be inclusive for community members at all stages of life, which is core theme 3. And several ideas for metrics for that theme.
What is it? Can you go back to that
Yep.
green slide? What does it mean, percent of housing units listed on the HSI? That doesn't
It
give me a
means
goal.
Yeah. So we didn't actually give you what percentage you're aiming for. What we want you to do is basically increase it.
Use
And-
it to measure success. Okay, fine.
Exactly. And the implementation committee could set a goal, of what they'd like to maintain the SHI at. It could just be 10%, or you could, set a greater goal.
Could you
Does the-
spell out SHI or
Sure.
not use a non-technical term to describe
Yes.
what that is for
Yep.
a layperson?
Yes.
I just have a question about this one,
Yep.
because we actually are over our threshold,
Yes.
right? We're at 12%, so are we saying,
I mean, you could just say you're going to be measuring anyway because the state's measuring it for you, but you
Right.
could just say measure to maintain over 10%. Or you could, end up having something greater that could be your goal.
This is a metric, not a goal. This is
Exactly.
just- these are ways of measuring
Got it.
how well you're doing.
Do you break down anywhere the difference between capital A and small A affordable housing? You're talking about SHI, which is
In this
state
plan,
But we also talk about, little a affordable housing, like group homes, cluster development.
I'll have to look back. I know,
But just because the town reached its 12%
yeah.
doesn't mean that it's an
Anyone can
affordable
afford to live
town.
here.
Right? That means you have to qualify under the state guidelines for that, but there's a whole level of individuals just above that metric that need affordable housing, little a. And do we separate that out anywhere?
well, they're two different goals.
But there are two different
Right.
numbers, really.
But they're two different numbers and two different goals.
Right.
Because you want to maintain your threshold so you're not subject to 40B. That's the purpose that's one of the purposes of the
Correct.
SHI.
But
Right.
making a
And then
place for everybody and making it
That's a
inclusive.
right, I
that's
agree
a
with you.
different
Different
goal.
thing,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think we can look at that more carefully, Rick, but I think at least in the vision for this core theme, we do say, it's up at the top here, I just found it. We actively seek to cultivate community connections and diversify our housing stock to promote more affordable and attainable housing options. And then we talk about streamline responsible housing development to ensure our housing stock provides a variety of options for residents.
Okay, maybe you do cover it there. This
yeah.
town gets caught up in, when I talk to a lot of people, particularly
Yeah.
at a certain age, they get caught up in that, we hit that SHI number, we hit that
We
10%.
don't need any more.
We
Yeah,
don't need any
yeah,
more.
yeah.
And that's, and the Affordable Housing
Very
Department.
narrow way of looking at it.
Correct. The Affordable Housing Trust needs to do a better job. I refer that to them to get out the word and to be able to understand the difference between the two. It's something that I've struggled with here.
Right.
But whatever you can do to help that. would be great.
Yeah. So I think it is supported here. I know we talked about using the phrase attainable housing options.
Yeah.
To distinguish that a little bit, and then it'll carry over into the goals as well, because we kind of chose things in that vision to
Attainable's
create the
okay.
goals.
Yeah, it is.
And it's also,
You
this,
can hardly tell that was written by a committee.
this plan this plan is replete with different ways of accessing the point of diversifying housing options. But what's important is that the first goal or the first core theme frames it in the context of net positive fiscal.
Right.
Because it's not gonna make sense in this town to have housing options that on the balance are not net fiscally positive. There's gonna be some low and some high.
But quarter acre, 1,500 square foot homes are more financially feasible than 1 acre, 3,000 square foot homes, right? So you're right, there are ways of doing it, so I don't wanna, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, and to your point, I mean, there's like number of housing units planned in progress with net fiscal, with positive net fiscal impacts. So there are metrics in here that talk about, and there's other stuff in here about goals and strategies for,
How deep you're going. I mean, we're into it, right?
yeah.
But I'm trying to put myself in just average person. If headlines like this, if they're all gonna read, we gotta get what we want them to hear up at this level. Cause they're not gonna drill down to the metrics. I mean, some people will, but
So how would you, I mean, this has been written by the advisory committee, right? This is where they've landed. And it includes the words affordable and the word attainable.
I think that's great. But
Yeah, okay.
Right, but if we start referring people to metrics, it's like people are gonna start losing, we're gonna lose them.
Oh, I see. So it's the metrics question that is catching you up.
Right,
Yeah.
but not what you've done here.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think when you take it in context of the whole plan,
Yeah.
you know, you'll see that we have woven lots of ideas for,
If you went back to the
What did you
metrics,
theme 3 metrics?
I mean, it uses the word affordable and unattainable. It's just it's back to that whole focus on the
SHI number.
SHI number and affordable housing, quote, affordable housing planning, which people affiliate with or connect with the SHI number, as opposed to,
Not to get into sort of any sort of rewrite here, but what I think what you're getting at, Rick, is that the way to achieve that is, you're talking about denser neighborhoods in town, right? Which tend to be our older developed areas in the town. That once you get away from the smaller lots, you're dealing with mostly single-family houses on larger lots, right? So that would be more of a zoning issue, I think, or rezoning issue.
That would be
where you'd have to
implementation committee.
reduce- Yeah,
Right.
right. So I don't know if a metric you might want to include is,
No, I think the idea
Sort
of
of
going, what kind of term, obtainable? I
number
mean,
of
just
affordable.
a single word could change, could get it out of just being the SHI conversation, because it's affordable in all caps, and then SHI, that's.
Well, and is a metric, I don't know how you think about this, Jen, but is a metric like how much rezoning or how much change in zoning has been done to accommodate more attainable?
I guess I'm less inclined to focus on zoning. I'd rather look at like what gets built after that as a way to measure, like, are you actually making an effect?
Attainably
Well,
Yeah.
priced units?
you could measure lot size.
Mm-hmm.
Like lots smaller than 1 acre, but that's not in our zoning right now. This are the only lots that are smaller than an acre are grandfathered.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you could talk about, instead of percent listed on the SHI, or maybe in addition to that,
Mm-hmm.
plans for more attainably priced units in community, in the central part of town or something? I don't even, or in.
Yeah, I guess I'm struggling with, do we look at how big the units are, or do we look at what they're priced at? I started to write down the number of units that provide options attainably priced, whatever that means. We'd have to figure that out. You know, does that mean affordable to someone at or below 100% AMI? It doesn't need to be deed restricted, but
Yeah.
what do we mean by attainable? Because if we're going to measure something, we actually need to know what that means.
Metric and used for actual quantitative analysis, you need to know what it means.
Or we could just measure alternatives to, number of units that are alternatives to single-family homes built.
I've seen the term starter used in other parts of the report, or downsized. I mean, I don't know how you measure downsized, but
So what about going back to metrics for success number 1?
That's like, number one,
Yep.
Yeah,
the metric or the
the metrics.
theme?
These. Yeah, number 2 is getting at,
Well,
if you're
that's
gonna have a net
impact on the
positive
town
impact.
As opposed to affordability or.
which is
or-
not going to be a single family on a large lot.
Because
But that's
if we
very,
just say like, one of our metrics is increased housing density or number of lots that have been cut below 1 acre, you're gonna have a real problem with the rest of this plan.
So all
Including
housing,
everyone who doesn't, one of our metrics is to reduce average tax rank in comparison to neighboring communities in Essex County. Having high-density housing may conflict with that if we're not doing it with the first goal in mind.
right.
I'm not saying, I don't
But
think we're
if-
saying high density, it's sort of higher density, or,
Could we go back to the metrics for 3? Because that's where we're getting tripped up. And I think the problem metric, I think it's all resolved if you take metric number 3 out
Out.
or restate it.
yes,
I don't think you need to do anything with anything else. I
Correct.
think you just need to take away the focus on, because 2 is already getting at that, right? But 3 is really, you could use that for,
What if you-
percent of housing units affordable to young families or something like that.
what if you just put in number 2 and attainable after affordable?
that too.
I like it.
I'm sorry, after number 2,
In number 2, just after the word affordable,
affordable and attainable.
because then that takes you outside of the pure SHI question.
Right. And planning efforts could mean zoning changes, honestly.
Yeah, and then I think, we would just need to task the implementation committee maybe to work with the housing trust on figuring out how do we measure attainable?
Right.
And what do we mean when we say that word?
Or affordable to young families, or however we describe it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll strike,
Not just young families,
Okay, but,
it's seniors.
Seniors too.
okay,
Or people
Right.
making it
All-
a certain income.
yeah.
Right.
Median income, 100% or
Right.
below, maybe.
so I'll strike, just to be clear what we just talked about, I'll strike number 3 completely, right, about the SHI? And then in number 2, add affordable and attainable?
If you're gonna modify 2,
I think
maybe you
you leave
don't
3,
need to
right,
take out.
correct.
Just leave 3?
Yes, which is modified 2
All
and
right.
leave 3. And I
Okay.
think that shows
Spelled
both.
out SHI.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to change 3 to something like maintenance of SHI inventory?
I was thinking that too, maintaining and increasing the housing units, affordable housing units mandated by state, whatever, whatever.
But this is just a metric.
Yeah, this is like just a
This
just a
isn't
metric.
goal, it's a
Yeah.
It's
metric.
a, it's
Yeah.
a metric.
So the percentage
It's just
is-
measuring,
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so sustainably protect Wenham's resources is core theme 4. And the metrics here. And again, you can see these are all about, setting that baseline and counting every year. So this is part of the implementation committee's job. And then the implementation committee would be reporting out at some regular interval to the select board and including their report in the annual report. So they would be tracking and then reporting out. And the idea of, I'm focusing on these metrics because if you have a plan with a bunch of goals and strategies, and even if you adopt all the strategies, if you're not moving the needle on these things that you care about, then what's the point?
Right.
Yeah.
Could you go back to the list? I have one question.
Yeah.
So 5, solid waste, does that include compost?
No, I believe that's not compost.
Because we were like a super leader on compost and curbside composting and all of that. And so I don't know if there's any way to reflect,
Yeah, I mean, I think the
continued
more you compost, the more you can reduce the solid waste.
solid waste.
So I think that's, it's
Sometimes
like
people
the,
think of solid waste as the combination of those. So I was wondering what
maybe we
this
just
one
need to
meant.
clarify that. Yeah, this
Yeah.
means like more compost, less,
Right.
you know,
I wonder
less
if you
solid
could say
waste.
that, increased compost, increased material going to compost, less material going to solid waste, and be
Yep.
really clear about it.
I have a question about number 3. The reference to protected trees, is that meant to be a category under, is it our tree policy, or is that just sort of an aspirational?
Is this number 3? Yeah, so I forget where you stand on the
Under-
tree policy. Is that going forward? Yeah, okay.
So we are trying to protect important trees.
Maybe you could explain what this program is.
But then planting more trees, because we probably are, Dave.
Yeah, I'm getting the planning part. What are my question is, what are the protected trees? Do we,
There's a criteria for them.
They have a
But I'm not
caliper of a
sure.
certain
What
size.
that is off the top of my
what's
head.
It's
Yeah.
a
Kate
caliper of a
Mallory
certain
knows it.
size,
It's a
yeah.
certain age, a certain caliber, and if
Yeah.
it's historic
It's a
significance to the tree's location.
no, I'm aware of the tree policy. I'm not aware of exactly how it works, like how a tree moves into protected status. That's
You
all.
have to
I was asking.
nominate it, and then I think the Conservation Commission has a process to go through that.
Okay, does it
I don't
have
have
to
the
be on
specific-
town land, or does it have to be
It could be
on?
on your property,
No, it's not private land.
on private land.
But are we saying we can nominate trees that are on private property
Yes.
that belongs to somebody else?
I don't know if you don't own it. You don't know the history of the tree.
Well, okay, well, I mean, you can nominate a tree on your own property, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine, that's, that's all I'm getting
I
at.
just lost 150.
I don't think you can
150
take
tall
one
elm
off.
trees.
That's what I
Someone
was, that's what I was trying to figure out here.
Which direction did it fall?
It was taken down because it was dead.
Okay. All right. The next one and the last one is work to increase appreciation and preservation of Wenham's history. And the metrics for this one, we included programming and events as well as looking at resources that are protected.
Great.
All right. And then
This is the biggie.
I did this out of order. This actually comes before all of that in the plan, but it really just ties it all together. And we have an annotated legend that tries to describe each of these things in detail and even gives examples of properties that would, be coded in that way. And you've seen this before. Do you have any?
The only
Questions on
thing
it?
I had, we've already had somebody come in here waving this map and saying that balanced conservation and development opportunity areas means high-density residential for the age-restricted residential. So I'm just wanted to get you to say what you meant when you were talking about balanced conservation and
Yeah, can I
development
just see your
opportunity areas.
plan? I want to actually refer to the annotated.
Which version do you want? Well,
So it doesn't necessarily mean residential even, or, did they say, they
and
said
the
age
balanced
restricted?
conservation and development opportunity areas, I wanted to
Yeah.
run that
So
by everybody.
before I look at this, before I read this more carefully, out loud to you, what I'll just say in general is the idea is rather than looking at those sites as just development sites, we wanted to look at them as having conservation land incorporated with some development. So the focus is more on the fact that they're looking at these as conservation land with some development, rather than
As opposed to, here's a great place to put a huge commercial development.
exactly. And so you can do something like, you could do something like a cluster or a cottage style, something like that, or it could be something else. It could be, a research lab. We don't really say it has to be one type of use.
Another-
Right.
right.
And some of this is really helping get at that fiscal impact piece as well.
Is there
Okay.
any way to, because one thing with all those properties is a lot of wetlands.
Yes.
Is there a way to superimpose the wet, so when you look at these big parcels,
Yes.
it looks like they're great, huge opportunities, right? But if you look at where the Pulte wants to consider their property, a lot of that's wet.
Yeah, and on the zoomed in maps on the pages right after this map in the plan, we zoomed in and we used some different layers because when you,
Sorry, I didn't go through the whole.
it's okay, when you put the wetlands on this, it gets really hard to read, right? But
It's
when you
already
can
hard to
zoom, yeah, when you can zoom in, so you can see that these properties, we did include the wetlands on it. So yeah, it's a good point.
What is B? B. It says the historic district. It's not the green parcel, right? It's
B should be,
In red.
no, B should be, no, red's not the historic district. Red is, sites that are on the inventory of
Preservation.
Wenham's preservation options or
Right, right.
inventory.
Okay.
I mean, B should be closer to.
Yeah,
Main
B
Street.
seems misplaced.
Or it could be like where A is, except A needs to be where A is.
B could be anywhere along Main Street because the
Yeah.
entire street is
Right.
What is-
historic district.
what is the parcel in green above K? So where it looks like B is.
Okay.
That's a
Parcel in
giant parcel that abuts my backyard. That's just basically,
Is it farmland?
That's not, I just talked to the guy who owns that the other day.
oh, it's also that farm.
Is that Reynolds
Yeah.
Farm?
Isn't that Reynolds Farm?
No, it's not.
It's
No.
on,
I
it-
I think
I
it
think
is.
it is. It's the.
Reynolds
fr-
Farm is on this
It's
side.
to the right of the train tracks.
Yeah,
is
but
Reynolds
it's all
Farm.
the same, it's all the same parcel.
No, it's,
That's
that
Buffy
big
Colt's
parcel is
property, isn't it?
privately owned.
Yeah, it's Buffy Colt's property.
and that guy,
That's the name.
the person who owns that used to be a select person.
Colts, the Colts.
Colts.
No,
Maybe they sold it.
Wait,
Well,
are
Reynolds
we
Farm
talking
is.
about the? I'm referring.
you
You see
may
where
be
the
right,
B
I'm sorry.
is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it
And the
looks
K.
like it has kind of a bulb at the top, and then it goes down to more
It goes
rectangular
over to Walnut,
to large.
Larch rather, yeah.
So we're not. We don't think that's Reynolds Farm.
It's
No, it's
not.
No,
not, 'cause
that's
it's
the
actually on
Colt
the other side
property.
of the tracks.
So
Right.
is Reynolds Farm to the right?
Oh,
of-
yeah,
To the
'cause
right of the
see the
tracks.
train track going through? Reynolds
Thank you,
Farm is
David.
the parcel
That's
on
just-
this
I
side.
think it's the old
Very
Colt
smart.
farm.
I know it
No,
was
wait.
Did you guys hear that? It's the old Colt farm.
Yes, I've been saying that, yep.
Yeah.
The
And
old
it's
Colt
all-
Farm.
It's all wet, it's all wetlands.
It's San Jose. I'm sorry, I'm reading this.
Yeah.
It's all. Oh,
I guess we know the way there now. It's the Colt property.
sorry.
Who said it's all wet in San Diego?
I guess they all know the.
You're laughing at the closed captioning, which is like telling us it's wet in San
All right,
Jose.
so are we saying
We
that
don't care.
the train tracks is running through up to where I is?
Yes,
Yes.
that straight
Okay.
line that looks like a fold in the paper is the train track.
And that's Enon
I
Village.
think
and-
Reynolds Farm is to the left of the track.
No, it's to the
No,
right.
it's not, it's to the right.
Because that's where Mr. Mastronzi complains they have the porta potties on the right-hand side when they're coming into Wenham
Okay.
in the tractors.
All right, but it sounds like we need to move B. I don't know why B is in the middle
B is-
there.
yeah.
And
So-
then it looks like K is a little bit out of place too, because that's supposed to be,
It could
K
be
is the
Country
light
Club.
green.
Go to
Yeah,
the
that's
left.
the light
yeah,
green, it just needs
it
to
needs
go
to just get a little bit over. Okay. So let me just read this to you because I just gave you that description of balanced conservation, but we thought a lot about how to describe this, so I thought it'd be worth reading it. Balanced conservation and development opportunity areas, which is just a name we made up, by the way. It doesn't have any specific meaning. Growing Wenham's economic base presents an opportunity to balance conservation open spaces and environmental resources with thoughtful development. Such areas are suitable both for promoting some development, such as housing opportunities, mixed use, commercial, as well as additional opportunities for protecting open space resources. And then we listed the properties that are shown up there, we listed them in bullets underneath.
Right.
So hopefully that makes sense.
And you're saying it doesn't have any particular meaning, but it will once this plan comes out, so.
Yeah.
Because it will now mean that.
Yes. And we also thought about the order of, originally when we wrote this, it said balanced development and conservation opportunity areas or something like that.
Oh,
And we
interesting.
flipped it to have the conservation,
Okay.
so, yeah.
It's really helpful. Thank you.
Is tender crop indicated on that map?
For what? In which category?
As under the, either open space or open space protection opportunity?
So is it here?
There, I think.
No.
It's further
It's
up?
across from the golf course.
Yeah, it's
It
there.
looks like it's
That's it,
white.
right
It would be
there.
this?
Yep.
Yeah. It looks like part of it. The back part,
Is it in chapter 61A? It is, okay, so that
Oh,
should be
yeah.
up there.
Yeah, so
All
there's
right.
something to just
Yep, let me,
draw the line slightly differently.
yep. Okay. So that should be listed under the light green. We listed all of the dark green as permanently protected open space.
Yeah, that would be light green.
And anything in chapter 61, we were supposed to put in light green, so I just made a note of that.
That's something I wish
And
people understood more in Wenham, that
Is-
so much of our space is already protected.
Is Angelini up by 97 at the corner of Topsfield, like, right as you go into Topsfield? Is
Yeah,
that
that's not on here
chapter
either.
61?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Angelini?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
where
that
the
large
bend
parcel
is,
right
just as
211 Topsfield Road?
So,
down to the left, to
Left,
the
left.
left, to the left.
Right there.
That
there.
okay.
is the Angelini farm.
Yeah, that's not on there.
Okay. To the right of K, that, there's a small white parcel in the middle of green.
That
What
thing,
is that?
yeah. MBTA?
I think it's part of the golf course, or
Owned
it's
by that
sort of
same.
wetland down there.
It can't be part of the golf course, because that would be on the other side of the railroad tracks.
Oh,
But it
then
might be
it's
owned by the same folks,
I
Pardon?
think it might be owned by the golf course, but
It
it's
might be.
wetland.
owned by them.
All right, so we'll check if that
Check that one?
is coded wrong, yeah.
There's like a swamp down there.
That's the river at that point, Miles
Okay.
River.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you see anything else, just, just let Margaret know, or you can email us.
I don't think that's the Miles River though. I think that's the overflow from Norwoods and Longham that comes down. It's
No,
behind
'cause
where
that's
the
down
old,
there.
Oh, that's the
behind
Miles
where the
River.
old lake. You see where the new Wenham Pines is, or Wenham Pines?
Mm-hmm,
Used to be a Lakeview golf course.
mm-hmm. And it has that little
That-
rivulet going through it.
Yeah, so the
That white piece is owned by Tar Holding,
okay.
so it is owned
So
by
it
the
is,
same
yeah.
people who own the golf course.
It is on the golf course.
Yep.
Okay, so that should be light green.
Which one? This?
The little
Yeah,
white
that
piece
white-
on the other side that's floating in the middle of all that green by the railroad track.
This one?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
That one.
Okay, yeah, I made a note of that one. All right, so.
Chart.
So the next steps are really to, that's already up on the website for community members to review. And we're basically taking comments through the 19th of April, so there's plenty of time. There's over a month. I think we gave it about 5 or 6 weeks, something like that. And I know that there'll be things handed out at town meeting with the QR code, so people can, hopefully check it out. They'll still have several weeks after that.
Right.
And then the committee's meeting again sometime in April. I don't know if that date was confirmed, but sometime after the 19th.
Yeah, I don't have their notebook with me.
And then reviewing any public comments that came in, and then sending over any comments for us to make final changes. And then I think they're hoping to schedule a joint meeting with you in May sometime to consider approving it.
Okay, but we haven't got that date yet, obviously.
I'm not sure what's been communicated about the May.
No, we haven't,
Schedule,
we
yeah.
haven't talked about that. Jen, there was, I went on your link today on your website,
Uh-huh.
and where it says, click here to comment,
Yeah.
it didn't work. It gave me some kind of an error message. I don't know whether you could try that.
I'm
You
looking it
told
up
me what
now.
happened.
Yeah.
I can always go over it with Brenna though, too. But I don't know if people will be looking at it this week. We did a social media blast, just to say the plan is out there and people can look at it.
Okay, I'm gonna look for it. So,
Yeah, if you scroll down.
so you clicked the link here?
That one, I did, the first time I did it, it told me I couldn't access, the Dropbox was full. But you try it, see if it works for you. Okay, that's good. It just brings up the plan itself. The other one that asks for, where you could, it said to click here for the,
The leave your feedback?
yeah, leave your feedback, click here. What do you get when you do that? Yeah, it says you need permission.
Okay, let me tell Brenna.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, so that is everything. Any other questions for me?
Thank you very much for
Thanks, Jen.
hanging
you,
in
Jen.
there with us.
And you know what, I'd like to say something, which is Jen and her team have been terrific. They've
Here,
been
into the mic.
they have been the, so patient and, worked with us tirelessly from my vantage point and delivered a superlative, one might even say peerless product. And, I am grateful personally for what she and her team have delivered to this town, because it's so far has been extraordinary, and it is a vision for Wenham, the next 10 years of Wenham. I see it in this document, and hopefully the rest of the town will as well. So thanks, Jen, and
Thank
your
you,
team.
appreciate that.
Well, a large part of it was your openness to being really collaborative with the committee and the community and having people really give opportunities for people to give feedback.
Thank you.
And I can hear people's voices in this. It's really good. Thank you.
It's great to hear. Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you
it's
so
a
much.
pleasure again to be back in Wenham, so maybe there'll be other opportunities.
As you drive through on the way to Cranes Beach.
I know, I was thinking as I was driving here that I'm gonna miss seeing the lake and, yeah. All right,
I'm sure if
thanks,
you want to
everyone.
move here, we could find
Right. And come up with some, what was the word? Attainable
attainable
units.
housing options.
Attainable units, yeah. Oh, this was your copy.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
I appreciate your willingness to think about
Thank you, Jen.
readable font sizes and
Yes, of course.
colors. Thank you.
You don't like purple, huh?
It's not that I don't like it, it's my eyes can't tolerate reading it. It's too faint.
Well, I didn't know until we went through this process that these are the town has town colors
What are
on our
they?
new town flag, right, Peter?
We do.
Didn't you guys on the select board vote for a town flag, or was that an administrator act?
They haven't decided what it's actually gonna be, but in principle, we said, yes, we need a new town flag.
Yeah,
Do we have an existing town flag?
We do.
we do. It
What is
looks
it?
like that.
And it's not kind to Native Americans.
Yeah. I wonder if we can
So it's
move
not that.
into, well, that's the seal, which is on it, but there's also, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, we were
We don't
we were
use it,
asking about the existing town flag.
we don't use it,
were looking at
we
the
don't
seal.
use it in things, we just use the seal,
Yeah,
for that
is it
reason, I
behind
think.
us? Yep, right here. That first one.
You want to get up or shall I?
Unfurl it?
Yep.
Yeah?
Open it up.
So the green, the blue, and the yellow.
Oh, is that the new one?
That's the new one.
Is there going to be a new one after that?
Oh, this is, we
Is
gotta,
there one after that?
The new one.
no. No, there's we're not talking about the same thing.
Old
Oh.
one is gone, right?
Oh,
The old one was problematic. So, not unlike the state flag, which is
That's the problem. That's the one we're changing.
probably.
Yes, but the state's
The
changing.
Massachusetts
State-
flag?
It's just gonna be a
Well, look at
giant
it.
No, but
Dunkin'
that's, we
Donuts
can't
coffee.
change it. That's the state.
State.
No, but
With Gronk holding it up.
there are a whole bunch of towns that have already done it.
No, it'll be, what's his
I
name?
don't think a town can change
Gronk.
the state flag.
No, but we have variation, all the towns have a variation of that,
Okay,
and because it's
Okay.
not good to Native Americans.
all right.
Okay, moving on,
Wow.
because it's 8:20.
We're doing good.
Ian, excuse me, Tony Tamboni is on
Oh.
Zoom, and I had tried to connect with him and let him know that you've already taken up the Wenham Pines issue.
Right, we're
So,
just,
Tony, I don't know if you can hear us? Why, maybe he's not there. Okay,
he's waiting for us to be finished
all right.
with.
There he is.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Hi,
Yes.
good evening.
Hi, we've already taken care of your item because we moved things to allow Attorney Samasco to go in front of the long presentation we just had. So thank
Okay,
you
that's
so
fine.
much for coming and listening to the master plan.
That's fine. No, I learned a lot, and we'll have to find another site in town.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Good night. Bye.
Okay, so now the items that we have left are the MBTA communities, the presentation on the master plan for town meeting, which will not be that long, it will be quick.
Did anybody, I looked at it,
Yeah, I did too and
PowerPoint?
sent
Looked fine.
comments,
it's perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, Ian's made some comments, so that's
I
a
did.
presentation Ian will be doing herself at town meeting, and we'll tweak that with her. to
Anybody who
make
wants
it-
to stand up there with me
Yeah.
and provide color commentary, I'm looking at you.
I mean, I looked at it, it made total sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's what
I
you
think-
did,
For the master
we
plan.
heard you.
Yeah.
It's-
yeah, yeah. The only question that I had for this group is whether I want to provide more emphasis on the economic study results that we discussed tonight. Because
This-
there is so much anxiety about tax base. and
I think if you even go there, you're just gonna open a massive can of worms.
Okay,
I agree, Peter.
there you go,
And
and we'll
there's
do it.
no,
High level.
there's no warrant article or vote, right?
No,
You're-
there's not.
You're just giving a summary?
I'm just
Yes.
giving a
So
summary and
there-
encouraging people to look, and I
Yeah.
can say,
I
there's a
wouldn't-
lot of information available on the website. Please take a look at it, including a study of, what kinds of development would need to happen to change the tax base, and
yeah.
all of
And a lot
that's,
of people were involved.
a lot of people are involved. All that's reflected in the various documents. Please look, please comment,
Okay.
open until the 19th or whatever.
There is, there's an article on the warrant to allow Ian to speak. So I think we have to vote to allow Ian to do her presentation.
Well, you could just vote me out.
Yeah,
and then
they
I wouldn't
could.
have to do
Then
anything.
we could say,
Oh,
no,
no.
we don't want to hear it. And then you'll have 10 minutes.
her.
There's no question and answer period. We are going to create a card, a small flyer to put on every seat, so everyone will have the QR code. So I guess the idea is to get people to know they can go and look at the master plan.
Am I taking questions?
No, there's no
Don't do
question
it.
and answer period.
Just say, if you
It's not
have
a
any
thing.
questions, you could come up and assault me later.
Yep.
Or any member of the planning board.
Or any member of the planning board. Actually, I'll
We
point
don't
to
have
him.
to vote right now, do we?
No.
You said we have to vote.
No, the
for Ann to
town
speak.
meeting will have to vote to allow Ian to speak at town meeting.
But they don't have to vote on the plan.
No, they're not
No.
voting on the plan. They're just,
No, nobody has
they
to
have
vote
to
on the plan
actually
right now.
vote to allow Ian to stand up and speak at town meeting
Well-
on this topic.
And that requires a warrant article?
Yeah,
Apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
so it's on the warrant.
So,
It's first thing.
question, what's on our April agenda? Do you have any sense at this point? I know that requires a bit of crystal ball prognostication,
47 Maple
okay?
will be on.
Again,
MBTA communities, because we're
Yeah, we
not gonna
could
be able to
continue,
do all
keep
that
doing
detail
MBTA
tonight.
communities. Hopefully, Wenham Pines will be on that agenda.
I mean, so, we talked with Jen at the last MPAC meeting about public comments at this point. And, like, her perspective is that, in her experience, there's gonna be two groups of comments at this point. One is gonna be, oh man, I'm forgetting the second. like, basically the comments are, question is, do we wanna, like, alright, I will stop forward thinking and spit it out. Do we wanna invite, does Ann wanna invite people to come to that April meeting to discuss it? Or do we wanna say, show up at the May meeting when we're probably gonna vote to adopt it or approve it?
Well, I'm definitely gonna say you need to look at this, and you should comment on it, if you haven't done so already.
And the,
Sure,
co-
yeah.
And the comments are
coming-
due
Yeah.
April
The
19th.
comments, yeah, by the 19th. And then I think the
Which is well
MPAC is having their
after.
meeting after that
No, I know, but
to
so the
recommend
comments are gonna
it
come
to the planning
through
board.
to you,
To me and to the website.
through the website.
And our April meeting is what day? It's before the 19th, as I recall.
It is,
We
yeah.
had
The
that
11th.
conversation last time.
It
Is
is
it the 11th?
Yeah.
the
That's my
11th,
kid's
yep.
birthday.
So the comments, on the 11th, you really won't have anything new, but on the 19th, when the
Can I ask you a
comments.
question?
Yeah.
Isn't that election day?
No,
11th?
not on
The 11th?
Thursday.
No, I think that's the
Is it?
8th.
I think it is.
Oh, I think it is.
Really?
On a Thursday?
Oh, because you would
Yeah.
know, because
Yeah.
you're
It's
on
always on a
election.
Thursday.
The local elections after
always on
town
Thursday.
meeting, yeah, whatever has to be
So
voted
does that
on.
mean we need to move the April meeting?
You can start it at 8.
We might have to, I'll have to find out.
You can't.
Well, that's
Not
when,
not with an
that's when the
agenda
Zoom
like.
only.
it sounds
that's
like
when the
we're gonna have.
polls close.
I know, but
So
wouldn't clear the
April
room.
19th is the next following Thursday, which is
But
the
does it-
deadline for
so-
comments.
April 18th.
Let me just test. Who cares? I mean, I know I raised it, like that's election day, but
Well, there's
I
gonna be
think we-
machines all in
Yeah.
here.
there's no room.
There's no
And
room.
legally, you're not supposed to meet on an election
You're
day.
not supposed to anyway, yeah.
there you go.
So if
I
we,
think-
raised
MPAC
this
is
last
scheduled
meeting
for
and
the
somebody said,
18th.
no, it's not.
MPAC has their meeting
wasn't-
scheduled for the
wasn't me.
18th.
and
So we think that the comments, the deadline is the 19th, but we should have most everything in by then. So the MPAC will have some idea of what comments are coming in and what it looks like. So,
So we just need to find a date for the April meeting, but I think we're jumping ahead because we still have a discussion on MBTA communities.
Yep.
I think we've talked about the presentation.
My question was just like, the action item for people was read the master plan and their fiscal report and get your comments in through the website.
Correct.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because I don't
we're gonna be
think,
voting to review it and potentially approve it on May 9th,
right,
folks.
Yeah.
right,
This is your chance.
Mhm.
right, exactly,
Okay.
right. And I don't
Oh.
think we necessarily want to invite them to come and give their comments orally to us at our meeting, because really, they need to go to the people who are actually going to put them in the
Compile.
plan,
Got it. I agree.
so.
So so just planning it out, can we meet again over the summer? I mean, do we need to get everything done in May for the, excuse me, master plan?
Water bottle in there.
well, the master plan, once you adopt it, it's the planning board's purview to adopt it, to approve it. And then from there, you'll have to come up with an implementation committee.
Right.
And then start working on it.
And
But
get
there's
up-
there's no deadline.
No deadline, that's what I'm wondering.
Rick's
Deadline.
questions, there's no
No,
deadline.
there's no.
So if we need to push that out to June, we could do that
Maybe we
to
could wait
deal
like
with our other
50
stuff
years.
that we have to.
Yes,
Well, so
Again.
is the implementation
I
committee?
think we approved that one, and
That's
then we.
formed by the select board though, right?
Not sure, David. I think probably it will be appointed by the select
I
board.
don't think it doesn't exist anywhere in anything now, so,
So then in that case, it probably does have to be done by the select board, I'm guessing.
maybe.
Yep.
So, wouldn't it make sense if you guys and you guys and your committee recommend who do you think should be on the implementation committee?
Team.
Yes.
And then recommend that to the select board?
You know, what?
You don't want us choosing.
Yeah, are you sure it's not a planning board?
I don't know. I haven't ever done this, created
Did we
one.
create the MPAC or did the
We
select
did.
board?
We did.
But the select board appointed
Approve the
them.
people.
The select board had to appoint the MPAC. That's what we found
Well,
out.
we created the idea of having one.
Yeah.
And we
Um,
put it forward.
Maybe in your presentation, we could add something that says to the community, start to think about who would like to be on the implementation committee.
Right.
Anybody
Yes.
out there,
That's
read
a
the
good one.
master plan, wants to be on the
Good,
committee?
yeah.
Should we ask town council for their opinion on,
Yeah, well,
In a
I'll
sense.
I'll check,
Yeah. And
not that part, I
And
mean,
again, it's like, we don't need to know this tomorrow.
Right.
no.
But it would
Right,
be interesting to
Who
know.
appoints us and
Okay.
implementation? Okay, great.
Are we almost done?
No.
We still have MBTA communities. We don't have things like, what we talked about.
Can
where-
I-
Can we shift over to MBTA communities now?
Yeah, but can I make a suggestion? Because there's
You
two parts.
absolutely can.
Two parts of MBTA communities, one of which, the prep for fall town meetings, that's
This is
related to
separate.
MBTA, right?
Yes and no.
Was it the
Fall
prep-
town meeting, it's
Is-
yes and no, yep. There's more than just MBTA, and that's what I really want to talk to you about tonight. Are there other things that we need to start working on? Do we want to pick a few zoning changes that we feel need to be made right away?
What I was gonna say is, on the timeline question, is it worth just looking at the timeline briefly, because we know we have to get the MBTA part done.
Yes.
Absolutely. The timeline is set, and
You did
it's
that.
flexible, yeah, so I sent you that
back here,
timeline.
right?
It's
Yeah.
flexible, and I don't know what date the fall town meeting is going to be. So we get the date for fall town meeting, and then we have to work backwards. Because as you know, if there's a zoning amendment that's coming, you need to have it by a certain date, and there's 2 weeks' notice, and there's a warrant that opens and closes, so
Isn't September 3rd Monday Labor Day?
maybe.
You
Probably.
know this because it's my birthday.
I was just kinda counting.
So
No,
what day was
September
that?
2nd is Labor Day.
September 3rd.
So
that
September
means
3rd is a
September-
Tuesday.
Oh,
So
there's a
you've
typo.
got
You wrote
down
Monday.
on Monday, so
I
so
wrote
it's
Monday?
Tuesday, okay.
Did you know that?
Jesus. You should
I'm
get
always
someone who-
aware of when Labor Day is.
Details on this job.
I always get a long weekend
Does-
right around it.
Do the subdivision rules, is that something we adopt, or is that before the town?
It's just you. Subdivision rules and regulations are just this committee. Can be done anytime, doesn't have to go before town meeting.
Okay.
We've been working on that too,
Need a
then.
consultant for that, honestly.
So what are we discussing about MBTA communities tonight?
Did we close out that article on discussion for potential fall meeting, or do you want to come back to that?
I think we can come back to
Okay.
that. If, for MBTA communities, I think Rick had mentioned something to me earlier. You've probably all heard about Milton.
To read about it in the
and
Globe every day.
Yeah.
It's in Globe almost every day. So there's discussion happening out there. Some communities are saying, no, we're just not gonna do it, or they're waiting to see, are they getting sued, we
I think
haven't
we need
had.
to do it.
Yeah, we haven't had anybody come forward in Wenham and say, no, absolutely, we're not, not doing this. But Milton had a
I
lot of
would-
public output, got a lot of feedback, and had their zoning written, it was all set to go, and then something flipped.
Yeah,
so-
but I think we should
Yeah.
proceed as
Okay.
though we are following the
Okay,
law and.
great.
But, look,
I
I
agree.
mean, Milton is actually losing, what, $1.7 million in state funding?
Yeah.
And they made the choice to do that, right? So that lawsuit's gonna play out, however it plays out, it doesn't
So-
affect us.
So
Right.
Dan, I've had
Agreed.
people ask me, how much money do we actually get from the state?
I don't think
What's the
we,
answer?
Not much.
Yeah, but
In
how
the
much?
three programs that were the original penalty for not complying, Wenham does not get any. We don't participate in those particular programs right now. That doesn't mean to say we wouldn't. But then they added all these other grant programs, practically everything.
Yeah.
who added?
Well, the state, and
Commonwealth.
they
When-
did
who
not
in
add
the
it.
state?
They didn't, it was, I think it's the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities, but it's not part of the law.
Well-
They're only saying now, it's a suggestion
Yeah.
that when you apply for these, those, it will be taken into consideration whether or not you're in
Not gonna have a
compliance.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's
So-
like, it's like
yeah.
blackmail.
But with the suit against Milton, I don't know, what do
I
you
just
think?
don't
You
know why
guys are
we should
lawyers.
concern ourselves with that. I think we should
Well,
move
because
ahead.
we will get questions when we
Well,
have the forum
That's
about
fine.
why are we complying with this if we're getting no money from the state on these programs? And if we
Because
don't
we care
comply,
about,
Today.
because we
today.
care about affordable housing and we want to keep our options open.
again, I'm just laying out the question
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
get,
yeah.
which is, if we're not getting any money, then why are we bending over backwards to comply with this? And if the state is gonna sue us for non-compliance, what do we have to lose?
So-
That's a question we might get.
So
Right,
Dan,
and the answer is because this is not, we're not complying with it only because we have to, or only because we get state money, but because we actually do care about
What-
affordable housing and.
And we have this
and
master plan thing that, and one of the things
livable
is.
communities and providing mixed-use development and
I would also
spaces for
add that-
people to live.
It's not difficult for us to comply with this.
And it's not that hard, right?
right.
Well, we spent a lot of
Do
time
you,
on
do
it,
you
so I don't know
remember
that
when we
it's
had
not
the
hard.
forum at Bucher?
Yes.
No, but I mean,
Were you
it's,
there?
it's
Yeah.
not,
Right, and remember Ben came up
Yes,
and just said, not a good idea.
right.
not a good idea to,
Fight it.
Fight.
oh, yeah, no, I mean, why would we want to spend legal fees on this, money on legal fees?
So what's the next steps? We all agree we're gonna
Right.
keep going.
So, one of the things that we had talked about is like mock-ups of what various scales look like if we did certain things,
Right.
right?
Well, we also chose our number one option.
We chose
It
the
went-
option, right?
right.
I just-
Unanimous.
That's done, yeah.
I wanted to go over that if we could just quickly,
Okay.
that I want to be certain that this is the option that we're all talking about.
I mean,
Yes,
I think so. Is it 6.3 acres?
Yes, this is about 6.3, so that
Two
that
lots.
fulfills our requirements
Yep.
within the half mile of the train station.
Mm-hmm.
Then this area, I shrunk it down a little bit, it doesn't include all of the town's property over here, just includes 3 of the parcels at Boulder Lane. It's a larger area than is required,
Mhm.
but the developable area over there is sufficient
Okay.
Okay.
for the requirements. So
Perfect.
that, I just want to make sure this is what we're looking at.
And what's the acreage at Boulder?
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
Is that zone
It's
commercial?
20, I think it's 19, or almost 20.
Was 20, that's
I'm
fine.
Is
sorry?
it zone commercial?
It's not zone commercial now,
Because that
no.
was one of the things, you had a whole bunch of different ideas.
Yep. Well,
Bylaw
we had
changes.
talked
Oh,
about,
that's another agenda item,
that's,
right?
yeah,
know.
that's
Okay.
a different.
But
So
that goes right to that one.
Yeah, and we could zone, you can zone the Boulder Lane property commercial and do the MBTA overlay.
Right.
Because that's what MBTA is,
you
it's an
end up with a
overlay.
mixed-use
All the
development.
underlying zoning stays in place.
and that's the bottom line, is because if this were developed according to that, we would see, do the math, X number of net fiscal impact positive.
Sure.
Correct.
So instead of telling us that you're against MBTA, who in this room is against $250,000 net positive tax revenue?
Nobody.
Right. I mean,
That's
a
the
good
other
position
reason to
point.
do
You're
it.
saying
That's
it's
a good
net
position point.
positive
for mixed use.
for,
Because if you do commercial and the MBTA zoning overlay.
right, are you talking about Boulder Lane, though?
Why not?
Well, of the two
Yes, you-
MFODs we're talking
are.
about,
That's the only one that's not zone commercial now.
No, the
No,
other one's
nothing
not
is
zone
zone
commercial.
commercial.
It's
Nothing's
not?
zone
No.
commercial,
No,
no.
but it's commercial use. It's
No,
just
it
not
isn't.
zone.
No, it's not used for anything.
no.
The property in Wenham over here is not built on.
Right, I think of it as an extension of the
Yeah.
shopping center, but it
And
isn't.
it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
owned,
yeah.
I think, by the same organization that owns Crosby's.
Right.
And that would have to be their access also.
This just brings up a point, we're not going through what you proposed in detail tonight, right? What you sent 2 days ago?
No,
Okay.
and but I did want to give you that because the zoning piece of it is an important piece.
Right,
So
and
you're
I
gonna
think-
have to decide parking, you're gonna have to decide,
It-
And I
Affordability.
think for us to, I'm sorry, Dan, I
Go
think
ahead.
for us to be able to do that, we're gonna need that supporting, okay, if you did it like this, it's gonna look like that. If you did it like this, it's gonna look like that. So some scaling and massing drawings.
And the reason I brought up the mixed-use point, Dave, was that we don't have to be identical in both overlay districts, right? We can say, we can do a different thing in one than two.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess,
That's all.
I just put in the assumption, like, why not have mixed use down there?
Yeah, I know.
Like, you're right by Gordon, and
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
It could be kind of awesome, because I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think we should put an overlay district on top of Gordon that's commercial and light industrial and mixed use. Straight over
Well, that's,
what Jen just showed.
yeah.
Yep.
And those are some things that the master plan is fleshing out, and then we need to decide, are those things we do want to move on for fall, because it is getting closer. This does have to get done
I
for
don't think we
fall.
have time to do that
So
for
my
fall.
question about the acreage, Margaret, is we know what the density has to be for
Yes.
District 1. It's gotta be like 12
Yep,
units per acre.
Yep.
What is it gonna have to be?
it's about
down
the
there?
same. for-
Really?
Yep, for that, yep.
Don't we have to balance out to 15 per?
I think
acre?
for over here, from what the calculations were, I thought it said about 13 units per acre.
But it has to be
But it doesn't
15 on
overall, it
average.
has to hit 15?
Well, and I think it does. I think
If
it
it's
will.
12 and 13, it won't.
To get the correct, because of the additional
Acreage.
acreage over here, your per lot,
Reducing the
it's a per
density.
lot density. I think it adds up over here, but I'll do the calculations.
Yeah,
And I'll-
please.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and this is all, that's why I want to talk to you a little bit more about it, because I am contacting the state, but not to present anything to them at all. But they're offering a lot of assistance. So for
Right.
someone to help me with the worksheet that we have,
And
Can
can
get
I
a
make a
little cumbersome.
suggestion?
yeah.
As we refer to these, I saw, and I think it was in our materials somewhere, that there was a reference to gas pipe lot. I don't think we should be referring to one of these lots as gas pipe lot.
For marketing
It's
Yes.
one of,
purposes.
it's one of these
Right.
up here.
This one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
But
mean,
the
utility
state has not
property.
excluded it. It's not excluded.
I know, but I don't think we should be calling it
won't
out
call it.
as.
I won't. And
It's what it
I think
is.
that was just in my
Okay.
notes. It came up as that.
Runs across the street
Okay.
from the-
So I noticed that you sent us this draft of a zoning bylaw, and it has lots of
Yes.
blanks about building coverage, and this is what I'm getting at.
That's just
height
the
and-
section, yeah, the dimensional requirements is something that we're gonna wanna discuss.
Well, I
and
know,
flesh
and
out.
those are the things that I'm thinking we could use some visual help with.
Okay,
Like this is what 100 parking spaces look next to a three-story
yeah,
building.
and you
Right.
know what, I had sent that to you, something a while ago, but I'll resend that.
Well, that may have been at the
Yeah.
point where I couldn't open anything that you sent me.
Yeah.
But now I have a town email,
So
yay.
is this just a
One other reason.
placeholder starting point, or do you want us to go through what you sent us and mark this up, or?
No, I don't need you to go through it in
Okay.
that much detail, but I think we wanna start to think about what the, parking and, do we wanna require affordable units? Do we wanna allow for mixed use? I think those are some things that I wanna be
And what do we
certain of.
think the building should, is there an
Yep.
appearance
Yeah, I
thing?
don't,
Can
I
we,
don't
can
think
we
we can do,
regulate that?
form-based.
So-
I haven't heard that come up yet.
Just for the sake of knocking things off the list,
Yep.
why don't we address the affordable unit issue right now?
Uh-huh.
Because
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody say we don't wanna do it,
Okay.
and we can do up to 10%.
Yep.
Right. Do we
Is
wanna
that the
vote?
sense of the board, or do we need to vote on that, or?
I think you can do more than 10%, right? You have to.
We
no?
can.
Okay.
The only way you
Can't
could
be
do.
age restricted, correct?
They can't be age restricted. You could do more than 10%, but you would have to do a big feasibility study of your community to prove that you needed more than 10%.
Which we don't.
we don't.
I
So
think would be difficult.
what
for
we
one.
need is accessible. What's the word?
We need little a, affordable
Attainable.
housing. Attainable.
Which, these could become that.
Need to be attainable.
Okay, so we're gonna keep the 10% affordable. I got
Yeah.
that. Mixed use, do we want to allow, because that's a new
Yes.
thing that they just added. So,
Yes.
okay,
Sure.
in both sections, in
Yes.
both of them.
Yes,
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think you can
we,
specify.
that's what a Cambridge Econometrics is telling
Yep.
us. That is where it's at.
Can you specify exterior finishes?
Yeah.
Natural stone versus, aluminum
We
cladding?
can do site plan review, but let me look into form-based. I'm
Or
not
how
sure.
about just, general statements of policy that the buildings should
Okay.
retain the character of the town?
So one of the things we have in the master plan is development of design guidelines for the
Yeah,
town.
yeah.
if I have my druthers, it'll be both in the historic context, but also town-wide. And, you know, I think we wanna get to a place where anyone who comes before us, they know that we're gonna be asking if they've considered it. They may not have to, but if they wanna come before this board, they need to have anticipated
some
that
sort
we
of-
want them to have looked at the design guidelines to
Okay.
keep consistent in this town.
All right, let me
But we
confirm.
won't have that for this, so,
Right.
so then the thing is, could you do some sort of preamble or policy, general policy kind of
Because I have some ideas.
thing about appearance without
Yep.
running into some problem?
Okay.
He's writing books now. He's a famous author. He's a famous
All right,
Public forum dates.
public yeah.
Beverly
So
So-
are you, are
Yeah.
we through with the scenarios that you wanted us to think through?
Yeah, I would just, if you could read the bylaw that I sent, the draft.
So
and see
homework
what you
is,
think. Yeah, look at the draft bylaw.
homework
think
for us
about-
is to come with that.
Yep, dimensional requirements. I'll get the actual numbers to you
And if you could get some, like,
and visuals.
mock-ups or visuals or something, maybe the state has them, I don't know.
So, you know, part of this too, it's not just high density. Someone who has this property may say, I can't put a septic in here for, you know, 100 units, but I could put a septic in for 6 or 5 or 3, you know, that there's that possibility too. So I want the board to understand, some of these areas may not develop in huge ways, but we
Oh,
can
oh,
also allow
oh.
for 2, 3,
get
We're
that.
just in a zoning
This
exercise.
is
Yeah,
just
that's
zoning.
yeah. So to keep that smaller size in mind too.
Yep,
I did read through that WGBH
Oh, yeah.
that you sent us, and I thought that was great. They were refuting those things, that the
Yeah.
town was going to be on the hook for all this stuff, and I'm like,
Right.
well, and for us, the septic's not the issue, it's the water that's the issue, so, I mean, maybe the septic as
It's
well, but,
both.
it's both.
but you can't, if you don't have a septic problem if you can't run that 10,000
Right.
gallons
Yeah,
a
we don't
day
have,
through.
But if
we
you
don't
run-
have sewer,
but
so it's
if
not the
you-
town's responsibility to
yeah.
provide septic.
Right.
We don't have sewerage.
Yeah.
We just,
Yep.
they have to build their own septic systems.
My
Okay,
fear
so-
is the
but I'll
state
get
would
you
just
some
mandate that
visuals
too.
For some of those smaller, middle infill types of projects too, as well as, you know, up to 75.
Right, so
80.
you have us having a public hearing on the zoning amendment.
Again, those
in
dates are
July.
just, yeah. So if we want to get
But that means
into
we
it.
need to do this next time.
Yes, we should get this nailed down. But we also want to do outreach to the community and see what kind of feedback we got. It seems like this issue is being brought up in the news a lot more. More people are now becoming aware of it than they
Right.
were.
It's the second
What, the
wave.
MBTA thing?
Yeah.
Yep.
that
It's
not
in the
people-
Globe every day.
It's
Well,
every
it's
day.
it's the second wave of communities.
Yeah.
So everybody like us has to comply
Yeah.
Right.
this year.
And you had some notes about Hamilton, which sounds like they're not as
Yeah.
far along. and-
They're not quite as far along. Their planning director did say he would try to get back to me with maybe some time when they would come and speak with you, that the
That'd be
Hamilton
great.
Planning Board would speak with you
Could we
about
do
it.
that?
They're thinking about
May?
form-based code, I think, for their downtown in general, and then they're thinking of overlaying 3A on top of that.
Okay,
Somewhere
can
in
you
there.
talk about form-based code for people who don't know what that means?
Yeah, no idea.
Form-based code is basically saying, we're not too interested in your use as much as what it looks like on our street
This
front.
is the
You
thing
know,
I was
in-
talking
in-
about, how pretty it is.
Yeah, it has to fit within the scape, the scope of the neighborhood that it's in. Mostly
Right.
downtowns use it, so you don't get weird buildings doing,
Mishmash.
yeah, mishmash.
Well, that was what I was getting at when I was talking
Yeah,
about,
what
could
kind
we include some sort of policy statement that picks that up, or
Yep.
picks up the,
Yeah, I'll look and see if we can do that. So those some.
Sounds like a
like
good-
CVS.
yeah, no.
No McDonald's with golden arches, just
Yeah.
nice
I
McDonald's.
mean,
I think Dan is just making a
I'm
point
making
that,
a joke.
that
I don't
that
see, how could
the
form,
shoppies are not all
how
what
could you
they,
match the
claim
form
to
to
be.
downtown Hamilton and accommodate that level of housing density? There's nothing around it that looks like that. It's not gonna look like a Rexall drug.
Yeah, he suggested it could be a
Make
challenge.
it look like a firehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did put some units downtown near the firehouse in
Yeah.
Hamilton that are 3 stories, and they're recessed, and they look like part of the neighborhood. So I think it
Yeah.
can be done in Hamilton.
Yeah,
Do you mean
I
behind
stand for it.
Railroad?
Yes.
Yes, it's,
Yeah.
forget
Oh,
what
yeah.
street
You
it
can't
is.
really
It's like-
see that.
That
from
has-
anything.
Doctors.
That has 18
Apartments,
units, and it's
18,
on less than an acre of land, but
That's
they
a
got
good
a
point.
septic system in there,
Are you
and
talking
they
about
got the
behind,
parking.
behind post?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 They
Willow,
had a septic in.
they
Willow
got a
Street,
septic in there, so.
So, if we're gonna have a public forum, I think we should do it in May.
Okay.
Because once we get into the summer,
Well, that's
you're
kind
gonna
of,
lose everybody.
and a public forum doesn't require us to have a final zoning ordinance, it's just to take
Well,
thoughts about
I-
what's gonna be in it, and but it would be helpful to have mock-ups of some
it would be
kind,
good to have a good draft, you know, with everything in it.
and some pictures.
Yeah, some pictures and, yeah, get the density correct.
We can do that.
We could do that for May, you think? What are some good dates in May? March, April, May?
Well, if it's a public forum, it's not gonna be on our regular
No,
No,
meeting, so
it would maybe be on the off
I would say
Thursday.
push it towards the end of the month if we
Okay.
can, but before Memorial Day.
9 and 14 is, 9 and 14, 23rd?
do you like Thursday nights best, or would you do Thursday the 23rd?
I'll
What do
be
we do
gone,
for-
but who cares?
What's that, Dave?
I'll be gone, but that's okay.
No?
Would
need
you
to
be around on a
here.
Wednesday?
Let's-
We
when are
did
you
it
gonna
on
be here?
Wednesday?
I'm actually leaving on the I'm leaving.
This is May, not March.
I know, it's just my stupid thing doesn't acknowledge what month it's in. I'm leaving on the 22nd. I'm sorry. I could do the 21st,
Tuesday.
Tuesday, the
21st.
21st of May.
That looks like a select board night.
Sure sounds like one.
What about the,
Does
what
that
about the
matter?
16th? Because you're gonna meet the 9th. We could do it the following week.
Why don't,
Or-
why don't we do it the
30th.
select board?
Yeah.
A
You can,
joint meeting?
Do you want
No,
to?
no, no, no,
No,
no.
no.
I'll attend the select board, and you guys
No.
do the
Need this
forum.
You, because we're,
we'll need this room or the library.
No, you don't, you
I-
can't
and
do
I
it here.
think the select board would like to attend this public forum.
Okay,
Why
You
don't we
know.
do a joint?
why don't we have Dave cancel his plans? And
Right.
Well,
You've
what
taken
about,
up my
what about
82-year-old
what
father.
about the 16th? Is that too soon, or the 30th, May 30th? That's after Memorial Day, but people
it
are
really?
still around, people aren't out of school or anything.
Yeah,
that might work.
Yeah, May
May
30th.
30th is great.
That gives
Yeah,
us a little more time?
that's good.
Okay,
Good.
all right, everyone put that in your calendar.
You don't have an excuse not to be there now.
And if we needed to have another meeting
board.
after our May meeting, we could have another
Yeah,
meeting before that, too.
we could,
Yep.
If
yep.
we needed
So
emergency.
we should, in
Let's try
advance of
to do
that,
this.
I mean, we need to let people know that we've pretty much settled on a
We've got something,
zoning district
Yep,
and,
some
you know,
ideas for
come
it.
and tell us your comments and.
yep,
Right, and we'll have some ideas, we'll show you some ideas for how it could look.
yep,
I'm really kind of leaning on that picture idea, because I think people can't conceptualize
Sure.
it. They're just gonna hear multifamily and get all scared.
The only thing I'm worried about with that is that it takes us away from, this is a zoning exercise, this isn't a
I
development
know, but
exercise,
it's like,
if it were
if you were,
developed,
if it
yeah.
could be developed, this is what it would look, because people, that's what they're worried about.
And you could hold those visuals to the end, too. You could go
Um,
through the whole thing and then just show people.
but,
What-
and that's, and what I've seen from webinars I've attended, they show you a lot of different options for types of development. Because like I say, the main goal of this, I think, is to create that middle housing. You know, you have the 250 unit buildings,
We
going up a
don't,
lot, and single family, but they're looking for that middle, you know, 3-4 units.
Right,
So-
townhouse type thing.
If the first forum was any indication, most of the feedback we got was negative, and it came in two categories. One was, this is a state mandate, I don't like the state telling us that we have to do this, and two was, the number of units that we're gonna have to put in is gonna fundamentally change the character of the town.
Well, A, we don't have to
Those-
put in any.
Well, I'm just, that's,
No,
that's,
I hear you.
that's the sort of the strain of the feedback that
Yep,
we've gotten so far.
Right, so it would be helpful to be able to say, this is not gonna necessarily happen, and
Mm-hmm.
it's required, but we also do need more, as our master plan has shown us, attainable housing options and
And keep,
economic development.
I guess keep Milton in mind too, because part of this is, this actually has to be approved by town meeting, because
Well, and if they
if it's
don't,
not approved, then,
look,
And the
this
AG
is how I
comes
feel
out.
about it.
Yeah.
I want us to do our job. I want us to put something forward that we can get approved. And if the town goes,
Yes, I agree.
oh,
I mean, but also.
I'm not gonna say it, but then, you know, we've done what we can do.
Right. I'm not trying to be facetious. We have the data from Cambridge Econometrics.
Oh,
We have the
absolutely.
thing, so.
And
to
everyone's
everyone-
complaining about their
Everyone
taxes.
who's saying it's gonna change the character of our town is the same folks that say my tax bill is too high.
Correct.
Is the same
Exactly.
people who I wanna look in the eye and say, you're turning down right now $400,000 in tax revenue. Are you okay with that? Cause don't come back and say that your bill's too high if you're not willing to do smart and fiscal development,
Right.
sustainable development.
I think that the timing of this with the master plan is great, because it meshes with
go with each
the
other. Yep.
master plan.
Yep.
I was just, by that last point, I just meant that part
Just
of
be
that
prepared.
part of that public
No, you're
forum
right.
on our part might be a little salesmanship,
Oh, definitely.
so we need to keep that in mind.
Oh,
Definitely.
man, you can spin the wheel.
Definitely.
One of these towns around us is gonna vote against it. You just know
Yep.
it. On the North Shore, one of these
Rockport.
towns. We can take bets later, Peter,
Okay.
but one of them's gonna do it.
So May 3rd?
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
if I could
let's
just-
not incite a riot
Yeah.
with our meeting
I'd
tonight.
just like to bring up a little, just one item.
Decorum.
If you look at what I'm pointing at here, this property,
Uh-huh.
these acres here.
Those
20,
are zone
26,
commercial.
half of it's zone business. So when we talk about that, business does not allow housing, our current zoning. The business district does not allow,
Perhaps it should.
housing. And I'm wondering, is that something, no one ever wanted to use this for MBTA, because I think in the beginning, when we first started talking about it, Dan, didn't we feel like, or the
That's
group
our-
felt like,
That was
that's
our
our
only,
business.
that's our only
Yeah,
commercial
it's
district.
our only
Right.
business district, and we thought we would lose that ability if the, housing was there, but I don't know, is that something that this board wants to think about, allowing some housing here also? It doesn't have
I
to
don't
be
see why
MBTA
not.
by right, it doesn't have to be by right, it can be special permit for mixed use instead of just, business.
So I think we can do that at our leisure and discretion.
Okay,
And I
After
would,
we have the
I would
master plan.
not do it as part of the MBTA process, though, just because
don't add it in.
I look, the MBTA is something the state is forcing us to do. We are mandated to do it.
Yeah.
So let's do what we
It's
have
its
to
own
do. And we've said before, it's only a first step. If we want to do more, nothing prevents us from doing more.
Right, that's
in
part of the
future.
implementation.
Great.
Yeah.
I think part of the master plan, one thing is we want to have a few quick wins, whether they're easy things, and this might be, Dan, speaking to your point, this might be an easy win, right? To say, look, we are moving forward with this, and the master plan, we need more of this, here it is.
Check a
And we
metric.
great,
Right, check done.
all right, great. Okay, so I'm gonna move forward, this is good, if you could just look at that zoning bylaw draft I gave you, give me your feedback, I'll get those not dimensional requirements, but I'll get the density requirements for sure.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
if you're gonna send us another version of this before, not that I'm saying you have to, but if you happen to flesh it out and send us something you want us to look at in front of before the next meeting, can we just get a little more lead time on? Right.
I will. I'll do it next week, I'll get it to you
Well, no,
next week.
I know you have a ton on your plate. I'm just,
So that parcel that you were talking about is called out as an economic and mixed-use opportunity area in the master plan. So we could, in fact, zone all of this irregardless of the MBTA
Okay.
thing. We could go back and say all of this is suitable for mixed use. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom, done.
Okay,
One thing checked off, right?
all right, very good.
I think I think it's worth more thought about what we want there
Mhm.
as a town
Sure,
on Main Street.
okay.
Yeah, no question, but we could do it. It's already called out in here, which is what I wanted to check.
Good.
Okay, have we worked our way through this agenda at this point. Do
Just
we
the
want to
other-
take up the meeting minutes?
Just the other thing on the agenda is the fall town meeting issue. So if you could just look at that list of things I gave you, start to think about it. If there is something else we want to bring to fall town meeting, you know, I don't know if we're gonna get another bite at that inclusionary zoning. I don't know whether
I mean, we could
anything else.
still do
comes up.
inclusionary zoning if we wanna do it.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah, it's separate from MBTA. MBTA is its own thing. That's going forward.
Right.
In its own path.
Right.
There are other things, though, that are gonna impact other
But do we have
parts
to
of
do
the
them in the
community.
fall, or can we
No,
wait till
we
the
do 'em in the
spring so that they're not like
Sure.
somehow or other linked to the MBTA community?
Yeah,
Because
I
there's gonna
understand
be
what you're
plenty
saying.
of
Yep.
controversy over
Okay.
that. And why embroil something really good and positive in that controversy if we don't have to?
Sure. Okay.
There may be little things that we need to do. But I have a question. So, and I know it's late, but this is on my heart, so I wanna put it out there. We've
say it's
just
on your-
gone through this.
Briefly.
Briefly. We've just gone through this master plan process, and we've identified where we wanna go. But the reality is we still have certain bylaws on the books, and we have a very old subdivision
Oh,
plan,
yes.
okay? And so we're getting, and I'm not speaking in specifics, I'm just saying, there are, developers continue developing. And I sometimes ask myself, what is coming before us and what people are thinking about? Is it based on what they have available, what's there now? Would they be proposing something different if they knew that there's gonna be changes, we're gonna be soliciting public input, we're open to projects that fulfill the vision that we're putting forth in the master plan? We're not gonna be able by the fall, one would hope by the spring, but by the fall, we're not gonna be able to have some master overhaul of the districts. We're probably not even gonna have a new subdivision bylaws, or rules and regs this year, but hopefully by early next year, I would hope personally. Is there a way that we should communicate this to the community and the developers attached thereto to say, before you chase in a certain direction, this is where we're going, and if there's like specific development opportunities that you think would fit, we wanna hear about it, like, don't just look at what's allowable now.
Right.
Look at where we're trying to drive this and think about that, because I don't wanna miss opportunities, have the town miss opportunities for strategic parcels that have been identified, just because we haven't caught up yet on the implementation of what our
So-
vision is.
So I think the plan itself makes those statements, you know, it sort of speaks for itself in that way, particularly the land use map. We've already seen it kind of misused once, as you know. So I think it's really important for us to like drill home what each of these categories really means, like we were talking tonight. There's a flip side to, you know, we're gonna make some changes, and that is, that can be heard as, hurry up and get your
Rush it
project
through,
in
yeah.
Right, that's what
now
I'm afraid of. Yeah.
before you can't anymore, right? So I wouldn't, I think it's a delicate balance.
But like, is it, not to be crass, but like, is the most money being made, or are they just making as much money as they can with what's available to them in the bylaws and the subdivisions? Cause if a developer wanted to do mixed use, and it's like, I'd much rather do mixed use than single acre single family home subdivision, but I can't do that right now. It's like, well, you haven't been paying attention, but we would actually prefer the mixed use, so if you can push this out a year, that may become an opportunity for you.
so I agree with Ann that I think the plan sends that message, and just practically speaking, we're not gonna be able to do more than one, maybe two zoning amendments at a special town meeting in the fall. I think maybe we could do inclusionary zoning with the MBTA, just because we've gone through the process, but I mean, I think we were just waiting for some language from Robin, right?
Yeah,
Which-
and to see how that.
And then it was, are we gonna let
is done.
a trial court decision dissuade us from implementing? But I don't think, I think this is gonna be, whether controversial or just
intense, let me say. I think we're gonna get an intense reaction in the fall. And it's gonna take up most of the special town meeting, and whatever else we might slate for that, you
It's
know.
gonna get buried.
It will get buried, we might not, I'm sure we'd have a quorum, but it has happened before where we lose quorums, and, I'm just saying, it's gonna take us a while to implement those other changes.
Right. So I wasn't even talking about that anymore. I was on the last bullet, frankly, which is totally unrelated, but just to say, is there some type of communication that we need to have to let people know that they don't have to see this as a town where the only option for development is 1 acre lot, single-family homes?
I
Because we
think-
don't want that.
I think we say it over and over again whenever somebody comes in. I mean, I think we wave this
Yeah.
around. I mean,
Right.
I don't,
Someone came in
I-
this
I-
evening with a new, a possible
Single-family
subdivision, single-family
development.
homes of six houses, which 6 houses, with no affordable component, because we can't impose that.
right.
You know, those 6 houses added on to the 2 we did last year, and
Right,
Spring Hill,
and
know,
whatever is going on in the
whatever's
street or
going on.
property.
That's their only option right now for that property. That's the only option for them to develop that
I mean,
property.
I wanted to ask Bob, would you, I don't know how much we wanna talk about this, I mean, I guess it's what it is. To a developer in concept who comes before us with his plan, it's like, if this could instead be a mixed-use development.
We-
Or a
Hey, Dave.
cluster.
Commercial.
But
or-
that-
Dave,
but-
Dave,
but-
we get your point.
But that
We do.
location might not
So
be the
what's the
best location for that. I mean,
Well, yeah, that might
question
not be a
about-
location for something like that, but
It's all in the master plan. I think it's
S-
clearly said.
yeah.
Things
Some-
are gonna change.
some of the residential areas that we're looking at now, that people are looking to develop, they'll come in with a subdivision, a standard subdivision. But if you were starting to think about some cluster, opportunities, or smaller homes, a starter home kind of thing, because we've had discussions on that. That might be things that people could start to think
well,
about.
and this whole mixed-use overlay is sort of, I mean, could
Well,
we do
mixed
that?
use is when you start to add commercial in those neighborhoods, that might be tough in some neighborhoods right now. Some of
Or
them
just
it's
thinking,
better,
I'm
but-
thinking about the Streeter property.
Can you-
They're putting flags out there, they're checking wetlands. What is going on out there?
I know 3A lowers the threshold to just simple majority for
Yes.
this zoning amendment.
Yep.
Does that, I can't remember, does that apply to any zoning amendment we do going forward, or is it just the MBTA
Just
component?
It's not, no, it's only housing, things that have to do with housing, like ADUs.
Yep,
They're also a lower threshold for,
but doesn't have to be MBTA, right?
no, it doesn't have to be
So if,
MBTA.
okay,
Okay.
so if in the future we wanna do some overlay or whatever, we wanna change zoning, when it gets to town meeting, it's only gonna be majority, it's not gonna be 2/3.
Yeah, as far as, it depends on what the bylaw or the
Right.
regulation you're trying to change, but as much, I think as, if it has to do with housing,
Because
that,
With everything else.
easier to do.
Because where I'm going with that is, yes, we have the plan, and it's got great aspirations in it, right? But when we start to, if we start to implement some of this stuff, we still need approval at town meeting
Yes.
for changing the
Absolutely.
zoning bylaw. And I would not be surprised if there is pushback to proposed changes, even if it's in the master plan, so.
And how fast can we move those changes? If we only can do 1 or 2 per town meeting, right? So we're,
Well, I mean, it depends on what those one or two are. If one of them is,
Very
we've written
controversial.
an overlay district that allows mixed use, and we're gonna put it on various parcels around town, and that's one amendment.
that's a big,
That's a big one, but it's only one.
but ADUs is 1 and it's pretty small.
Okay?
Yeah, ADUs
A
by right.
A right by right, ADU by right would be a small one, right? So you could start
But
bundling
I
together.
guess your point was, if you can only do one at a time, then how many can we do? And I'm just saying, one of them could be quite big.
Right, so I'm saying you
just do
couldn't do
one.
many, so it'd take a long time to get a lot of these zoning change. What my point was, it might take a long time to get these zoning changes through to actually allow that kind of development. Right? I mean,
Unless it's.
Yes, it might take a long time.
so
Or
we
it
should,
might
we
not.
should worry.
Yeah, or it
Or
might
it
not,
could
but,
be one overlay zone.
but I think by definition, it's gonna take a long time because it has to go through the town meeting process.
Right,
That, that in itself takes a long time.
Right.
right.
But I think the inclusionary zoning would be an easy one, actually, at that meeting, because it's,
everybody wants, I haven't heard anybody say we want to fall below our SHI inventory threshold.
Correct.
Right,
Who disagrees with that idea?
Right.
right, nobody.
Well,
No, I'm talking about the 5 people in the room. Us.
oh, I don't.
Right, so why don't we do it?
The only struggle we will still have with that is that whether or not we can implement it in subdivisions. That's the.
Well, right, but that's gonna get determined by.
Yeah.
Right. so
That's
then
gonna
we
get
just-
sorted out
then we
legally
just
eventually, so.
Amend it and say not applicable, and,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I would be more worried about it getting caught up in the controversy over the MBTA and just getting nixed because everybody's unhappy.
Do it first.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, Dan, do it first.
I like that.
The warm-up.
Okay. I would like to note that it's 9:15, and my bedtime is coming up in 15 minutes.
So on the minutes, Ian, I'm sorry, I sent you the wrong set of minutes. I sent you the Affordable Housing Trust
Yeah,
minutes.
I thought
So we
the,
only have the one set, the February 8th.
I thought the February 8th ones looked fine, actually. Did anyone have any?
I've already
You've
gone
already
through them.
done them, which is why they look fine.
Oh, that's why they're so clean.
Because you did your paint, your line edits, which is great. There was this comment, there was this one thing on the second page where it says, comments from the Zoom chat were read by Margaret Hoffman, but then there weren't any comments presented in the minutes. I don't know if that matters.
She's got them already written.
It's already got them written out, so.
They were
What
minimal,
was the?
comments that were.
Wasn't this recorded too?
I think it's just in the wrong spot, right? The meeting was open for public comments, and, oh, I see, here,
That
the
was
Zoom.
people in the room, and then there was Zoom, and they're not documented, but that was the only thing I saw.
But these are just minutes, so.
Right.
I vote to approve the February, I move to approve the February 8th, 2024 planning board minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye. Aye, unanimous.
Unanimous aye votes to approve those minutes.
So the next meeting for you guys is gonna be
April
the
11th.
April?
No.
Well, it can't be April 11th, right, because it's,
Oh, March. Yeah, let me confirm that.
You're dying, man.
So I'll send you an email as soon as I confirm with the town clerk,
It is.
whether
It's
that's,
on the calendar.
it is on the calendar? So what do you wanna do? Instead of the 11th, your usual meeting
10th?
date?
Can we adjourn without setting a date, or we need to set
Sure.
a date?
10th? Can we just set a date and get it done?
That would be the Wednesday,
Yeah,
second
do the
Wednesday?
10th.
Wednesday?
You guys okay? Sure. Wednesday.
I
Wednesday,
may
the 10th.
actually have a board
10th?
meeting that night, but
Okay.
I move that
I
we
will just say
adjourn
no to it.
until April 10th at 7 PM.
Second that.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you.
Oh my gosh.